Chapter 1979. A familiar feeling suddenly welled up in his heart. Unlin recalled the horror of being drugged by Xiaolan again. "Xiaolan, you have to believe me. I love you." He opened his mouth with tears in his eyes and swallowed a mouthful of the green soup that Xiaolan was feeding him. This soup is quite delicious?" Unlin faltered slightly before suddenly feeling like it was quite delicious. "Is it good?" A mesmerizing smile appeared on teenage Xiaolan's peerlessly beautiful features. "It's delicious. Xiaolan's cooking is always delicious." Unlin nodded with an honest expression. "Drink more if you like it. It's healthy and environmentally friendly." Teenage Xiaolan picked up the spoon with a practiced hand and fed Unlin the soup. The two of them were so happy that they forgot about the green dishes on the table. Unlin then bravely tasted all of the dishes on the table to find that even though all of the dishes were very green, they tasted extraordinarily good. What a delicious aroma! A pleased smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face upon seeing Unlin's elated expression before digging in with Unlin. The bloodlines of the 6 vermilion bird sages are recovering very quickly. They should be able to return to their peak power in a few days, Su Xiaolan said as she ate. "That's good. We'll be able to improve our core combat power once again." Unlin nodded in response. "The heavenly sea god of the West Sea has already appeared, so aren't you worried that the defenses over there are a little weaker?" Su Xiaolan asked curiously. "Everything is under control. Don't worry, there's a teleportation spell formation in Yutong City that leads directly to the immortal land above water. If something happens, we can teleport there immediately." Unlin smiled. Su Xiaolan nodded. "That works too. The heavenly sea god isn't very aggressive at the moment, so the heaven-crushing sect should be able to target it as well. We don't have to worry about that. Is Lan Xiaoni beautiful?" "She is." Slap. Maiden Lan suddenly put down her chopstick. "But she's only ordinary beautiful, and she's far from being able to make me yearn for Little Lan's appearance." Unlin ate a mouthful of the devil's heart, and his expression was calm as he remedied the situation in an extremely natural manner. "Is that so? Lan Xiaoni is a stunning beauty of the West Sea. I heard from the people of the West Sea that you have a super good relationship with her." Teenage Xiaolan picked up her chopsticks and continued to slowly pick up more food. "Not bad, buddy." Unlin ate a piece of green shadowtrite. The adolescent girl Lan was naive, lively, and adorable. Her feelings for Unlin were also extremely passionate, but at the same time, she had an unavoidable shortcoming, and that was that she was very jealous. Unlin had known about this a long time ago, and was as calm as an old dog. Every cultivator was a big eater, and they could quickly digest the dishes on the table. Unlin and Su Xiaolan finished the dishes on the table in just a few bites. Even though the table of green dishes appeared to be some sort of dark cuisine from the outside, Unlin could guarantee after eating that this was an extremely delicious meal. After eating, the two of them went to the Silver Moon River and rowed the boat while admiring the vibrant sea of flowers on both sides of the river. Thus, another wonderful and fulfilling day passed by. Early the next morning, Unlin sat down to meditate as usual. The door to his room was suddenly opened. A fragrant scent wafted toward him. Immediately afterward, he felt a warm sensation on his forehead. Unlin opened his eyes to discover a woman in a jade dress. Her features were as beautiful as a painting, and she had a faint smile on her face. Her facial features were so exquisite that they were unimaginably perfect, and the smile on her face had become a lot more mature. He was a little dumbstruck. The woman in front of him was not only extremely beautiful, but she also had an excellent figure. Her skin was white and tender, like a ripe peach that was at its most delicious moment, ready to be plucked at any time. 40-year-old Xiaolan, here's a good morning kiss for you." Su Xiaolan was a little shy, and she glanced at Unlin with some annoyance. "Why do you keep staring at my private parts?" Unlin was stunned at first, and then he came to his senses and said with a shocked expression, 40-year-old? What 40-year-old? Didn't you say that you would return to your original appearance after a period of time? How come you've become more mature and developed than before? Su Xiaolan furrowed her brows in distress. I don't know either. Ever since I advanced to the immortal cultivation rank, my appearance has been fixed at 20 years old. No matter what, my appearance won't change. Who would have thought that I would look like this when I woke up today? She patted her chest that had become much larger and sighed. Sigh, I'm also very distressed. The corners of Enlin's mouth twitched imperceptibly. She was distressed even though she had become bigger. If the legal loli knew about this, wouldn't she eat half to death? He then looked at the current Su Xiaolan. Her figure had become slightly more plump, and her entire body was releasing a mature and charming aura. It should be said that the current her was even more charming and gorgeous. This Xiaolan, I like it. Enlin felt very happy. Xiaolan, I'll return you a good morning kiss. Enlin, why are you so anxious? A beautiful morning began with a good morning kiss between lovers. It was like a little bird drinking the morning dew and tasting the sweet flower juice, making one forget to leave. The two of them kissed for a while before going to eat breakfast. Su Xiaolan liked to cook when she was free. This could be said to have developed into a hobby. Thinking about it seriously, she was actually led astray by Enlin. Enlin had dragged her to the celestial court to cook to earn money, so Enlin had successfully escaped. Su Xiaolan, on the other hand, was obsessed with cooking. Even though she was not short of money now and did not need to cook for the immortals of the celestial court, she still could not help but tinker with new dishes every day to cook for herself and those close to her. As time went on, not only did her cooking skills become more and more awesome, but her recipes also became more varied. Now, cooking had become an important part of her life. Enlin found that this was the best decision he had made back then. Because of him, there was now a beautiful wife who took the initiative to cook for him. Not only that, she made delicious food, but she also took pleasure in it. Wasn't this a super happy event? Enlin happily enjoyed Xiaolan's breakfast and welcomed the beautiful day ahead. After finishing their breakfast, the two of them went to inspect the defenses on the city wall to see if there were any flaws in the spell formation. After that, they continued to enjoy themselves around Yutong City with Xiaolan, as if they were the happiest couple ever. Thus, a few days passed by in bliss. The heavenly sea god suddenly contacted Enlin. Enlin, I've received some important information. The heavenly sea god was a little excited. Enlin's eyes lit up. Oh? What is it? Any information that could be considered important by a paramount heavenly god was definitely not some trivial matter. It could very well be information that could decide the course of the war. Chapter 1980. The heavenly sea god spoke in an indifferent voice. Do you know how the heavenly human tribe came to be? Enlin faltered slightly upon hearing this. There are eggs of different colors hanging from the divine trees, and the heavenly human tribe are hatched from these eggs. The heavenly sea god was astonished. You know about that? Enlin smiled. He had been to that special place and even seen the heavenly life goddess, so how could he not know about it? Who would have thought that you would know something? The heavenly sea god sighed with emotion. Don't think of me as an idiot. Enlin snapped. Have you already been to the heavenly human holy land? The heavenly sea god asked. Enlin thought for a moment. If the place you're talking about is filled with auspicious energy, vital energy rivers, mountains of unfathomable heights, and divine trees hundreds of thousands of feet tall with pink leaves, then I think I've been to that place. That's the place. The place where we nurture the heavenly human tribe. The heavenly sea god replied with excitement. So what does that have to do with the information you're going to tell me? Enlin asked. Do you know how many heavenly human tribe soldiers there are? The heavenly sea god asked. Enlin thought to himself for a moment. If we're talking about the heavenly human tribe living beings alone, then the 3 heavenly gates should have around 100 million soldiers, right? The heavenly sea god nodded. The number of eggs in the heavenly human Holy Land that have yet to hatch is over 10 times that of the heavenly human tribe army. Unlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. There were that many? He seemed to have guessed what the heavenly sea god was going to say. The heavenly human tribe has a very short growth cycle. From the moment they hatch to the point where they're ready for battle, only 1 year is required. Imagine what would happen if all of the eggs hatched at the same time? The heavenly sea god asked. Unlin took a deep breath. A heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion? In all honesty, a heavenly human tribe army of 100 million was already extremely terrifying. Under normal circumstances, it was already comparable to the combined armies of several first-rate forces on the Tai Chu continent. If the heavenly human tribe army was 10 times that, then they would be completely crushed. Is it possible to hatch all of them? Unlin asked with a trembling voice. The heavenly sea god chuckled. Of course it's possible. Why do you think the heavenly gods didn't launch a large-scale attack back then? Avoiding backlash from the heavenly Tao was one of the reasons, and the other reason was that he didn't want to waste too much energy. He wanted to use the heavenly human tribe to whittle down the living beings of the Tai Chu continent. After all, the heavenly human tribe is created from the life essence of the entire realm of stars. Not only is it produced in a short period of time, but it's also of high quality and an endless supply. 1 billion is just the current number. In 100 years, even 10 billion won't be a problem. Unlin gulped. Could it be that the information you're talking about has something to do with the destruction of this heavenly human tribe Holy Land? No, you don't have the power to destroy the heavenly human Holy Land. In reality, there isn't enough time for them to create more heavenly human tribe armies. Nuwa's mending of the heavens has progressed to the 3rd stage, and not only am I unable to enter the Tai Chu continent, the heavenly human tribe is also unable to do so. Hence, the paramount heavenly gods moved 1 billion heavenly human tribe eggs to the Tai Chu continent. They planned to incubate them all at once before quickly ripening them so that they could form a heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion within a month. Light and Earth have just told me about this plan. Unlin's eyes lit up. So you know where to put the eggs? Do you want us to go and destroy those eggs? Where are the eggs? There should be a lot of soldiers guarding them, right? The heavenly sea god. Actually, those eggs are right here with me, Unlin. They want my western heavenly gate to become a breeding ground for a heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion. After successfully nurturing them, the heavenly human tribe army will sweep through the entire Tai Chu continent. The heavenly sea god explained. Unlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. These 2 paramount heavenly gods must be blind to have left such an important item with the heavenly sea god. How could these eggs be placed in the heavenly sea god's hands? If these 1 billion heavenly human tribe living beings could listen to me, then this wouldn't be the case. However, I didn't participate in nurturing the heavenly human tribe, so my control over them is nowhere near as effective as light and life. If a conflict arises, they won't listen to me, so I have to get rid of them. The heavenly sea god spoke with a serious expression. Unlin was quite amused by this. The heavenly sea god had only just received news of this, and he was already plotting with Unlin on how to deal with these 1 billion eggs. If the 2 paramount heavenly gods knew about this, they would be enraged. This was the heavenly human tribe's most secretive and terrifying power, and it had to be eliminated while it was still in its infancy. Otherwise, even if Unlin and the heavenly sea god were to successfully launch a sneak attack on the Kingdom of the 9 States United Army, they would still suffer extremely heavy casualties. The only difficult part for us now is how to create a coincidence so that you can accidentally destroy the heavenly human tribe, heavenly god egg here. The entire process has to be logical and natural in order to avoid arousing suspicion from light and earth. The heavenly sea god said. That was indeed a difficult part. Where are the 1 billion eggs at the western heavenly gate? And Lin asked. About 10,000 kilometers northeast of the western Heavenly Gate, on a massive island with abundant vital energy. I've also set up a paramount nomological formation to protect it, the Heavenly Sea God replied. And Lin almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing this. Are you proud of setting up such a King Bad SS formation? Can't you lower the difficulty a little? The 1 billion heavenly human tribe eggs are an extremely important part of our strategy. How am I supposed to lower the difficulty? How am I supposed to lower the difficulty? A conflicted expression appeared on the Heavenly Sea God's face. And Lin, on one hand he wanted him to wreak havoc. On the other hand, he wanted to elevate the defenses there to the highest level. Wasn't this asking for too much? And Lin's brows furrowed tightly as he fell into deep thought. After a short while, his eyes lit up. I have a plan. You've thought of it already? The Heavenly Sea God was still racking his brains to no avail, and he faltered slightly upon hearing Lin's words. Is this a good idea? I don't want to give myself away so quickly. The Heavenly Sea God was a little skeptical. Lin, let me finish first. The Heavenly Sea God nodded. All right. Lin, like this. The Heavenly Sea God paused for a moment before his eyes also lit up. However, he was still a little hesitant. That isn't very appropriate. You can't catch the wolf without risking the child. Lin spoke with a solemn expression. That's even more inappropriate. You're selling my child. The Heavenly Sea God was a little gloomy. For the sake of our grand cause, for the sake of your dream, you can't even bear to make such a small loss? Lin was exasperated. The Heavenly Sea God took a deep breath and made up his mind. All right, I'll do it. Chapter 1981. Lin and the Heavenly Sea God chatted for a while longer before cutting off the connection. A grand plan had already begun. Lin returned to his normal life and waited for the wind to blow again. Yutong Divine City was once again filled with the sight of two immortal couples enjoying their meals. In the eastern region of the Tai Chu continent, an earth-shattering battle erupted on the eastern border of the Kingdom of the Nine States. Over 100 million heavenly human tribe united army attacked Qin Shi City. Tens of millions of soldiers from the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were also fighting back with all their might. On the eastern side of Dawn City, the sounds of battle cries, and the collision of spell techniques rang out incessantly. All of these explosions were filled with destructive power, and it was as if heaven and earth were about to be torn asunder. On the massive city wall of Qin Shi City, over 1,000 ionic collapse cannons rumbled incessantly. Each and every cannon blast would cause the space around the target to cave in and tear all of the heavenly human tribe living beings to shreds. This was a massive slaughter machine that had already slain hundreds of thousands of heavenly human tribe living beings. It was the work of the 4-9 Immortal Sect's Purple Star Pavilion. Aside from that, there were also 10 void cannons on the city wall that could shoot black particles. Each and every one of them was like a black streak of light that pierced through the air, reducing all living beings in its path to the tiniest of particles. These void cannons were extremely fearsome, and even Heaven Pioneer's stage great generals would be severely wounded or killed by them. There was also a blue ball-shaped cannon. This cannon was not an offensive cannon. Instead, it was a defensive cannon that could annihilate all living beings within a kilometer radius of Qin Shi City with super-dimensional energy. Not only was it extremely fast, but it also had the power of karma imbued within its core. These cannons were all advanced technology from the 4-9 Immortal Sect, and countless powerful beings on the battlefield were astonished by them. They had transformed a battle between ancient cultivators into a battle between cultivators from science fiction. The disciples of the 4-9 Immortal Sect's Purple Star Pavilion were constantly firing cannons. At most, they would have a protective cannon. As for the disciples of the other pavilions of the 4-9 Immortal Sect, all of them were equipped with high-tech exoskeletons. Not only were these exoskeletons extremely powerful, but they could also fly through the air, unleash spell techniques, and use energy amplification devices. All of them were far more powerful than they should be, making them appear as if they were warriors from the future. All of the cultivators from the other sects were extremely envious upon seeing this. They also wanted this high-tech exoskeleton. If it weren't for the fact that these things were so expensive that they couldn't be mass-produced, they would definitely buy a bat. The other pavilions of the 4-9 Immortal sect also performed extremely well. All members of the Blood Pavilion were at the Return to Void stage, and there were more than a dozen Return to Void stage mighty figures among them. Wherever they went, it was as if they had been plunged into a crimson hell, and they were able to extract all of the heavenly human tribe's blood from their bodies. Although the Snow Maidens of the Snow Maiden Pavilion were extremely beautiful, they were extremely vicious and cruel. The battlefield they were in was covered in ice and snow, and the extreme cold was taking their lives. Not long after the battle began, over 1 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings had already been turned into exquisite ice sculptures. What a beautiful work of art to freeze the most beautiful appearance, to leave the most beautiful state in this instant, is fate and also the true meaning of life. This is the true art. The Snow Empress stroked the ice sculpture of a female great general of the heavenly human tribe. The female great general was still in the stance of drawing her sword when she was instantly frozen to death. Inside the ice cube, her beautiful face was frozen, but her sharp and resolute eyes were still there, like the most perfect sculpture. Shangguan Yi turned to look at the Snow Empress with a resigned expression. She really didn't dare to compliment the Empress's bad taste. After killing the enemy, she still wanted to admire and praise them. What kind of hobby was that? The Snow Maidens were extremely powerful. They had 2 Dao integration stage super mighty figures, a dozen or so Return to Void stage super mighty figures, and an army of over 10 million Snow Maidens. If one didn't know better, they would have thought that some first-rate power had participated in this battle. However, they were only a branch of the 4-9 Immortal sect. The Sword Pavilion and Dragon Pavilion were also extremely powerful. The Sword Pavilion Starfire battleship spanned for over 150 kilometers, and countless cannon blasts rained down upon the heavenly human tribe army. In terms of combat prowess, it was only comparable to a Dao integration stage super mighty figure. However, after being upgraded by Bai Ling, the Starfire battleship's slaughter and annihilation abilities had far exceeded that of a Dao integration stage super mighty figure. The relentless cannon blasts were a testament to this. It didn't even have time to breathe. If any Dao integration stage super mighty figure were to try this, there was no way they would be able to keep firing. The 2 Dao integration stage true dragons of the Dragon Pavilion were even more fearless on the battlefield. They charged headlong into the enemy's territory and slaughtered their way through the battlefield. One of them had invincible defenses, while the other wasn't afraid of death. The heavenly human tribe army was on the brink of collapse. This wasn't a battle, this was a battle of attrition. In terms of ferocity, even the 5 emperors of the Celestial Court couldn't compare to these 2 true dragons. They were fighting with everything they had. It couldn't be helped that they had more lives than they had to. Apparently, Shao Tu had even gone to the Eastern Heavenly Gate once. He had faced off against several heavenly gods and the Heavenly Light Goddess, but he still hadn't died. This was massive news that had rocked the entire Tai Chu continent. The 4-9 Immortal sect's performance on the Eastern Front was comparable to that of the Celestial Court. Furthermore, the 4-9 Immortal sect was even more invincible on the Central Front. They had 9 Vermilion Birds, sect leader Enlin, and acting sect leader Su Xiaolan. It could be said that they were invincible. On a certain battlefield, a man with a buzz cut and wearing a suit of dragon crystal armor swept through the battlefield with a spear in his hand. His spear techniques were extremely exquisite, and there was terrifying lightning revolving around his body, making him appear as if he were a massive dragon that was wreaking havoc on the battlefield. This man was none other than Wang Xuanzhan, who had interacted with Enlin on many occasions. He was once number 1 on the United Immortal Rankings board, and after 100 years of cultivation, he was now a ferocious general of the Celestial Court. His cultivation base had also reached the return to void stage, and it could be said that he was a supremely talented prodigy. However, he didn't have the right to be proud, nor did he have the right to be proud. There was nothing he could do about it. His juniors were countless times more bad *SS than he was. Wang Xuanzhan cultivated in the Tao of the battlefield, and he was extremely powerful on the battlefield. Every sweep and slash of his spear was imbued with mountainous power that far exceeded that of normal celestial immortals. Before he knew it, he had already killed over 100,000 enemies. It was exactly because of his ferocious performance that he attracted the attention of the Heavenly Human Tribe Great General. Boom! A terrifying pressure descended upon the area. A Heaven Pioneer stage Heavenly Human Tribe mighty figure suddenly appeared before Wang Xuanzhan before unleashing a palm strike. Wang Xuanzhan reacted extremely quickly, and he let loose an enraged roar as lightning crackled on the tip of his spear. Roar! A dragon's roar erupted. Lightning exploded. Wang Xuanzhan felt an irresistible force emanating from his spear, which extended to his arm, tearing it apart and sending blood gushing forth. Pfff! Wang Xuanzhan threw up a mouthful of blood and flew back with severe injuries. Heaven Pioneer stage cultivators were known to be invincible below the Tao integration stage, and this was no exaggeration. He was only a celestial immortal who had just progressed to the return to void intermediate stage, so he was no match for them. An extremely handsome man bathed in the holy light of the heavens quickly approached Wang Xuanzhan before spreading open his snowy white wings and looking down at him from above. His palms began to expand in size as terrifying energy fluctuations emanated from them. Dragon General of the Celestial Court, Wang Xuanzhan, your end is here. The Heavenly Human Tribe Great General spoke in a cold voice as his palms crashed toward Wang Xuanzhan. In this dire situation, Wang Xuanzhan gritted his teeth and was just about to fight to the death when a small red flower suddenly appeared on his head, swaying in the wind. Chapter 1982. Wang Xuanzhan was given a fright. Why was there a flower growing on his head? However, he knew that he was in a perilous situation, so he didn't have time to think as he stabbed his sword toward the enemy before him. All of a sudden, a dazzling golden light erupted from the little red flower on his head. The golden light was extremely pure, to the point where Wang Xuanzhan couldn't detect any energy fluctuations. It's over. Golden light exploded from my head. Wang Xuanzhan felt like he was in a tragic situation. He had most likely been struck by some strange spell technique. Who would have thought that he would die in such an inexplicable way instead of dying a heroic death in battle? Just as he was thinking this, a beam of golden light suddenly shot forth from the golden flower on his head, piercing through the Heavenly Human Tribe Great General's head at an extremely fast speed. It was so fast that the Great General didn't even have time to react. Before the Great General's palms had even landed, his body suddenly faltered. Then, his eyes glazed over as a look of enlightenment appeared on his face. Thump! The Heavenly Human Tribe Great General knelt down with tears streaming down his face. I've made a mistake. I'm filthy and filthy, I beg of you, please kill me. Wang Xuanzhan was just about to retaliate with his dragon-patterned spear when he was dumbstruck upon seeing this. What the hell? The mighty Heavenly Human Tribe Great General was kneeling down to him and begging to be killed? He didn't recall sending any money to him, so why was he suddenly delivering his head to him? At this moment, a sweet voice sounded from above his head. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and purify the repentant enemy before you. Praise the sun. The Heavenly Human Tribe Great General raised his hands high into the air. Turn your heart toward the light, praise the sun. Splat! Wang Xuanzhan's spear fell, and he cleanly sliced the great general in half before adding expressionlessly, "Praise the sun." Never would he have thought that the most powerful enemy he had ever killed would be defeated in such a manner. "Thank you for your assistance, Elder Xiaohong," Wang Xuanzhan said in a respectful voice. He didn't know what the little red flower on his head was, but he came to a sudden realization when he heard Xiaohong say, "Praise the sun." Who in the kingdom of the 9 states didn't know that Elder Xiaohong was a salted fish who sunbathed every day? No, it wasn't salted fish, it was a koi. It was nothing. "All right, keep up the good work, Mr. Wang Xuanzhan. I'm off to save the others," Xiaohong replied sweetly. Then, her body suddenly disappeared. Wang Xuanzhan didn't know how Xiaohong had come, nor did he know how Xiaohong had left, nor did he know how Xiaohong had managed to make a heavenly human tribe great general kneel. That was a heaven pioneer stage, heavenly human. As long as the heavenly gods didn't appear, they were the strongest. Their belief in the heavenly Tao and their use of the power of heaven were absolutely superb existences. Such existences were extremely proud, and their Tao hearts were extremely firm. How could they possibly kneel here and let him kill them? Not even the 5 emperors of the celestial court could do this. The meaning behind it made him feel terrified when he thought about it. What kind of freaks are the 4-9 immortal sect powerful beings? Wang Xuanzhan sighed with emotion. Come to think of it, this little red flower seemed to be Lin's pet beast. Were all pet beasts this amazing? Wang Xuanzhan turned to look at Dabai's dog in the distance. His current combat prowess was roughly equivalent to that of Dabai. What a painful realization. Never would Wang Xuanzhan have thought that over 100 years later, he, the #1 prodigy on the immortal rankings board, would only be as powerful as a dog that Lin had ridden. This was simply too surreal. Dabai must have received a lot of immortal opportunities, right? He really wanted to follow Lin. What could he do? Wang Xuanzhan shook his head vigorously to rid himself of these distracting thoughts before charging toward the heavenly human tribe powerful beings. The battle was still raging. Perhaps this was due to the fact that the heavenly human tribe had been defeated on the central front. There were no heavenly gods in this battle. There were only over 100 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings. However, the kingdom of the 9 states united army was extremely ferocious and had slain more enemies than the heavenly human tribe powerful beings. When they had suffered 3 to 4 million casualties, the heavenly human tribe had already suffered close to 10 million casualties. The massive increase in morale was one of the reasons for this, but the 4-9 immortal sect was also another reason. Everyone was quite elated. If this battle continued, the heavenly human tribe would eventually run out of soldiers. The eastern front was still embroiled in a massive battle. The central front was still as peaceful as ever. Lin and Su Xiaolan were still preparing for battle and living a leisurely life. Yutong City was a massive city, and there were far too many things to experience here. There was food, drink, and entertainment, and all of these activities were unique to the various tribes. The Light Wing clan, the True Demon tribe, the Buddhist tribe, and even the West Sea Monster tribe and the Holy Martial clan all had their own unique activities. Lin held Xiaolan's hand as they traversed through the streets and alleys in an extremely joyful manner. The next morning, the first rays of the morning sun appeared in the east. The cry of the vermilion bird reverberated throughout Yutong City. A new day had begun. Lin was meditating on his bed. However, the familiar sound of a door being pushed open did not sound for a long time. He was a little confused. In the past, Xiaolan had always been the one to wake him up. After tidying himself up, Lin made his way towards Su Xiaolan's room. He had only just arrived at the door when a voice sounded from within. "Don't come in." The voice was a little familiar, and it was slightly hoarse. Lin's heart jolted as a sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. He immediately pushed open the door, only to discover that there was a powerful restriction that isolated the surrounding space. Don't come in, please. I beg of you. A hoarse, pleading voice sounded from within the door. A white light flashed past Enlin's eyes. Divine inspection technique. What a joke. Do you think I won't come in just because you say so? I'm going to meditate in this room. Enlin flicked a finger toward an obvious flaw in the restriction, and the restriction instantly shattered. He immediately pushed open the door, upon which a female's cry of surprise erupted. A figure in a jade dress had her back to him, and she had her hands tightly clasped over her face with a sobbing voice. Didn't I tell you not to come in? Why didn't you listen to me? I really didn't want you to see me like this. Enlin faltered upon hearing this. He looked at the thin and frail figure before him. The jade dress was still the same as yesterday, but the body beneath the dress was so frail and frail. Her hair was gray and her neck was wrinkled. Her hands, which were exposed beneath the dress, had lost their luster and were instead a little saggy. Enlin walked over to the side of the bed and sat down across from the woman in the jade dress. His heart throbbed with pain as he looked at the woman in the jade dress, who had turned her head away with her hands covering her face. He stretched out a hand and forcefully pried the woman's hands away from her face. Enlin saw Su Xiaolan's appearance. She still had an oval face, but her face was full of wrinkles and age spots. Her snowy white cheeks were gone, her seductive lips were gone, her exquisite nose was gone, and her bright eyes were gone. In their place was a saggy and wrinkled face, shriveled lips, a shriveled nose, and a pair of dull and lifeless eyes. Su Xiaolan's eyes were red, and she finally mustered the courage to look Enlin in the eyes. Her voice trembled as she said, "Do you see my face? Are you satisfied now? Get out, get the hell out of here. I'll be fine in a few days. Just a few days and I won't look like this. Can't you wait? Why do you have to?" Suddenly, a warm and soft sensation came from her forehead. Su Xiaolan stopped talking and opened her mouth. She stared blankly at the man who was leaning forward, feeling the warmth and softness on her forehead 10 seconds later. Enlin took a step back and looked at the wrinkled Su Xiaolan before him with a warm smile. "Here's a good morning kiss for you. Good morning to the 80-year-old Xiaolan." Chapter 1983. A kiss. A smile. It was as if the morning sun had pierced through the night sky. The pain and gloom in the woman's heart were all dispelled. Su Xiaolan stared blankly at the man before her, and she could no longer hold back her tears. She threw herself into Enlin's arms and burst into tears. "How did I become like this? How did I become like this? I'm so ugly, how am I going to face people in the future?" Su Xiaolan grabbed onto Enlin's clothes and burst into tears. She wasn't sad when she became a baby, nor was she sad when she became a lowly. She wasn't sad when she became a teenager or a middle-aged woman because she was still very beautiful at that time. But now, she had become an 80-year-old woman, and she almost broke down when she looked into the mirror. Although for cultivators looks were just skin bags, they were just skin bags. But could they really get over it? This was a world where looks mattered. Beauty was something that billions of people yearned for, so how could they ignore it? Su Xiaolan said she didn't care about her looks because she was already very beautiful. No matter how she changed, she would only become more and more beautiful, so of course she didn't care about it. After all, she wasn't called the Holy Maiden or Goddess for nothing. However, when she discovered that she had turned into a white-haired old woman and her beautiful face had turned into a bark-like appearance, she, who had always been accustomed to being a fairy, suffered a huge blow. It was easy to imagine. Enlin hugged the trembling and sobbing woman in his arms tightly, and his heart ached for her. He didn't want to make the woman in his arms sad, but he didn't know what else he could do. All he could do was hug her tightly and let her know that he would never leave her. The sun set in the west, and the setting sun melted gold. The passage of time was always accompanied by aging and separation. Enlin couldn't decide who would age first, but he could decide to stay with Su Xiaolan forever during this period of time. He didn't say it out loud, But he knew that Su Xiaolan definitely knew that he had made his choice. Don't worry, Xiaolan, this should only be temporary. Even though you've aged, your life force hasn't weakened. This could be a side effect of inheriting the holy birth, but you'll recover very soon. Anlin finally thought of something to comfort her. But what should I do? I've aged so much and become so ugly. I really don't have the face to see anyone. Su Xiaolan's shriveled body lay in Anlin's arms, still murmuring in pain. Anlin's eyes lit up. Who do you think is uglier, the clown or you? Su Xiaolan's body trembled, and her eyes reddened as she said angrily, I may be old, 80 years old, but how can you insult me? Anlin smiled and said, That's right. The clown is so ugly, but he still has the face to meet people. Why can't you? Xiao Chou is so ugly, yet he's willing to marry a supremely beautiful woman like Bai Yao. Why are you so flustered? Su Xiaolan's mouth gaped open, but she was completely speechless. Xiao Chou's outrageously ugly features appeared in her mind. Thinking about it that way, the grief and pain in her heart seemed to have been alleviated significantly. In fact, she felt much better, achoo! On the Eastern Front, the clown was engaged in an intense battle when he suddenly sneezed and looked around with a perplexed expression. Could it be that someone was cursing at him? Die, ugly monkey! In the distance, a few soul-piercing stage heavenly human tribe generals pounced toward the black crystalline armored monkey with rage. The clown glowered at the soul-piercing stage heavenly gods, and boundless scintillating light burst forth from his bulb-like eyes. The soul-piercing stage generals felt as if they were pouncing toward two suns. It was too dazzling. Bam bam bam! The clown swung his staff through the air toward the heavenly human tribe generals, who had been blinded by his bulb-like eyes, and one general after another fell amid blood-curdling cries. Die! Stupid monkey! Behind the clown, a heavenly human tribe general enshrouded in darkness suddenly stabbed toward the clown's neck. The general's eyes were obscured by the shadows, so he wasn't blinded, and he didn't call the clown an ugly monkey. Instead, he took this opportunity to kill the clown in one fell swoop. The black spear tore through the air like a bolt of lightning. The clown detected the attack behind him, but it was already too late. A triumphant expression appeared on the heavenly human tribe general's face. At this moment, countless tails suddenly obscured the sun in the sky. 6 snowy white fox tails came crashing down upon the general like massive palms. You dare to touch my little monkey? Die! A clear cry erupted from the sky. Boom! The tails were extremely heavy. The heavenly human tribe general let loose a wail of anguish as he crashed into the ground, creating a massive crater. The clown turned around with an ugly smile on his face. Can't you see that there are 2 of us? The heavenly human tribe general's face was filled with rage and indignation at the sight of the exquisitely beautiful woman clinging to the clown in an obedient manner. He was just about to say something when a massive black staff came crashing down mercilessly on his head. Bam! The heavenly human tribe general had fallen. The clown and Bai Yao left hand in hand. In the distance, Dabai was just about to help the clown when he swallowed a mouthful of Dabai food before charging toward the other heavenly human tribe powerful beings. This was a massive battle, and both sides were fighting with all their might. 20 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings had been killed, and only then did they begin to retreat. At this moment, their numbers had already been reduced to 90 million, which was the same number as the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. However, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army had previously numbered 100 million. This meant that the heavenly human tribe had suffered twice as many casualties as the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. One had to realize that all of the heavenly human tribe powerful beings were extremely powerful. On average, they were on a higher level than the living beings on the Tai Chu continent, but the outcome of the battle was vastly different. This was absolutely unimaginable. Long Outyen looked at the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, and he suddenly realized just how powerful the heavenly human tribe was. An army that had experienced despair, and then boundless hope, was on a completely different level compared to a normal army. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army chased them for over 1,500 kilometers. Only when three heavenly gods with divine halos above their heads appeared among the heavenly human tribe United Army did the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army stop in their track. The celestial Dharch and the ancient dragon Empress stood at the forefront of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, facing off against the heavenly gods without any fear. They were the most powerful beings on the eastern front of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, and all of them were extremely proficient in heaven-crushing technique. As such, they possessed powers that rivaled heavenly gods. The celestial Dharch and the ancient dragon Empress could continue fighting, but they had no intention of continuing the battle now that the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army had achieved so much. Charge! Ha *CK them all up! At this moment, an earth-shattering roar erupted. Two black dragons that blotted out the sky actually pounced brainlessly towards the three heavenly gods not far away. All of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army and the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army's expressions shifted at the same time. Chapter 1984. The 80 million-strong Heavenly Human Tribe United Army and the 90 million-strong Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were already locked in a stalemate. Barring any mishaps, both sides were about to retreat. However, the two powerful black dragons pounced on the three heavenly gods without a care, looking as if they were going to kill the heavenly gods. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was astonished, as was the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army. Had these two true dragons gone *King insane? The heavenly gods were not just any ordinary beings. They were beings who had mastered the paramount laws of the heavenly Tao. Even if the true dragons were Tao integration stage super mighty figures, they would still be insta-killed if they didn't possess heavenly disciple level combat prowess. However, some of the powerful beings of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were quickly relieved after seeing who the two true dragons were. These were the 249 Immortal Sect super mighty figures who were not afraid of death, Xiao Zhe and Xiao Tu. Eat this! Divine Dragon Tail Whip! Xiao Zhe abruptly swung his tail toward a lark with white smoke billowing from the divine halo above its head. The lark crossed its arms to form a shield to take the attack head-on, but its body didn't budge in the slightest. However, Xiao Zhe's body was knocked flying by the terrifying recoil. Heaven-crushing dragon breath. Howl! Xiao Tu opened his mouth and blasted a destructive dragon's breath toward the heavenly god in the distance. The kami, who was shrouded in shadows, suddenly stretched out a withered gray palm and lightly blocked the breath in front of him. Invisible ripples spread out, and the terrifying energy of the breath quickly dissipated in front of its eyes, as if it had fallen and diminished. It became smaller and smaller, and the level of the energy became lower and lower. When it was about to touch its body, it had already turned into a light breeze, and it did not hurt or itch. All of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were astonished upon seeing this. Even though Xiao Tu didn't possess heavenly disciple-level combat prowess, he was still a Tao integration stage primordial dragon tribe mighty figure. How could his full-force attack be nullified so easily by a heavenly god? Celestial Dharch, do we need to go and help? The ancient dragon Empress asked with a speechless expression. The celestial Dharch massaged his brows. He didn't know what to do. Let's wait for a while. Let those two dragons have their fun first. His voice had only just faded. Xiaozi let out a loud roar and actually started to pounce toward the heavenly god who was shrouded in darkness. Xiao Tu flew toward the lark. The two of them switched opponents tacitly. Xiaozi directly charged towards the heavenly god shrouded in shadows and used the dragon clan's most commonly used charge attack. The heavenly god waved a hand, and the dark mist surged towards Xiaozi like a tornado. 10,000 mammoth dragons! Xiaoza's entire body was suddenly covered in a layer of ever-changing crystalline armor, which was capable of unleashing different defensive measures against different types of energy. Puff, 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 the dark mist shrouded his body, causing his crystal armor to crack and wither. He had also analyzed his opponent's ability in an instant. Degradation, degeneration, degeneration. It could degenerate all living things. Dragons degenerated into flood dragons, humans degenerated into gorillas, and phoenixes degenerated into pheasants. It could even degenerate life into stem cells. Xiaoza's expression turned cold. Isn't this attack a little too terrifying? He immediately made the correct decision. He gave up on expending his energy to upgrade his defenses and charged forward instead, swinging his tail toward the heavenly god in front of him. The crystal armor quickly melted away, but before the black mist could touch his dragon scales, the tail had already smashed heavily into the heavenly god's body, who was shrouded in darkness. Bam! A gargantuan thump erupted. The black figure plummeted from the sky and smashed a massive crater into the ground. Countless people's eyes widened with astonishment. Xiaoza had just swatted a heavenly god flying. At this moment, Xiao Tu also pounced toward the nearby lark. Learning from Xiaoza's lesson, Xiao Tu didn't use any physical attacks this time. Instead, he opened his cavernous mouth. What is he trying to do? No way. Everyone's eyes widened as they watched the black dragon swallow the lark-like heavenly god in an extremely violent manner. Then, it shut its mouth. All of the onlookers drew a sharp intake of breath. Xiao Tu really was quite daring. One had to realize that this was no ordinary bird. This was an extremely powerful heavenly god. Wasn't he afraid that it would wreak havoc in his stomach? Wasn't he afraid that it would detonate his body? Did he really think his body could slowly digest a heavenly god? It had to be said that Xiao Tu really was insane. Did he have a death wish? Wait. It seemed like he really did have the right to do so, ha. You won't be able to escape now that you've entered my stomach. Have a taste of my infernal dragon grindstone. Xiao Tu chortled with glee as terrifying energy exploded within his body. Awesome. Xiaoza chortled with glee as he also pounced toward the heavenly god on the ground. Right at this moment, a speck of light that no one was paying attention to suddenly flashed. All of a sudden, all of the living beings present felt as if a boundless light was trying to pierce through their eyes, and everything before their eyes turned white. Countless living beings howled with anguish, and some of them were even shedding tears of blood. The light was so bright that it even stripped away all of the living beings' senses. The celestial Dharch and the ancient dragon empress expressions both shifted drastically. They knew that this light was targeted at Xiaoza and Xiao Tu as they were the two true dragons. Sure enough, Xiaoza and Xiao Tu let loose panicked roars. The light disappeared just as quickly as it came. However, the light had only just disappeared when the celestial Dharch and the ancient dragon empress were greeted by the sight of an extremely beautiful heavenly goddess who was holding a massive pink folding fan. Piss off! The heavenly goddess harumphed. Howl! Xiaoza was caught off guard and was knocked flying for over 500 kilometers before being pushed back by a burst of terrifying wind power. Xiao Tu was in an even more miserable state. His body was extremely hot and red. I've become more powerful, I've become more powerful. Xiao Tu writhed frantically as he spoke in a language that no one could understand. Immediately afterward, his dragon's scales began to fall off. How are you still alive? The heavenly god wielding the massive golden saber had already appeared on Xiao Tu's back, and a series of terrifying saber projections instantly sliced Xiao Tu's body in half. Howl! Xiao Tu let loose a blood-curdling wail as a piercing light erupted from his sliced body. The ancient dragon empress and the celestial Dharch had initially wanted to rush over to help, but their expressions shifted drastically upon seeing this, and they immediately unleashed a powerful barrier around the army of tens of millions. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion suddenly took place. Golden energy engulfed and destroyed everything around it in a frenzy. Xiao Tu's body had exploded. All of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army soldiers were grief-stricken. Their most powerful being, Xiao Tu, had died again. Why again? It couldn't be said that Xiao Tu and Xiao Zhe had been completely useless during the mudslide on the battlefield. At the very least, they had drawn out another two heavenly gods. Chapter 1985. The Celestial Arch and the Ancient Dragon Empress unleashed their most powerful defenses to keep the shockwaves of Xiao Tu's explosion at bay. The heavenly human tribe seemed to be prepared, and they instantly constructed an invisible barrier to keep the shockwaves at bay. After the explosion, Xiao Tu's body had been reduced to an extremely sorry state. Xiao Zhe was in a slightly better state. He had the most powerful defensive ability among all Dao integration stage super mighty figures, and he was only knocked a little far away by the massive fan-wielding heavenly goddess, but he didn't suffer any serious injuries. However, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was becoming quite nervous as 5 heavenly gods had appeared. There was a heavenly god enshrouded in darkness, a heavenly god in the form of a lark, a heavenly god in the form of a speck of light, a heavenly goddess wielding a massive pink fan, and a male heavenly god wielding a massive golden saber. In the past, they had been evenly matched. Now, however, 2 more heavenly gods had appeared, and everyone's flesh crawled with fear. The balance of power had been completely skewed, so it was not impossible for the heavenly human tribe to retaliate. That annoying B** starred has finally piss off. A beautiful female heavenly goddess sat on the hovering folding fan, and a faint smile appeared on her face as she looked at Xiaoze, who had transformed into a black dot in the distance. "Linghua, you should have killed him," said the Empyrean god with the huge tyrant blade. Linghua shot a cold glance at the male heavenly god. "That's easy for you to say. Do you think you can kill that dragon without activating your 9-god halo?" The male heavenly god's lips twitched. "Would it kill him to flex with me?" At this moment, the lark flew in the air and looked down at the army of 10 million soldiers. A clear voice that was like the chirping of a bird reverberated through the world. "Do you still want to continue fighting? If you do, we're more than happy to oblige." Her words had clearly given the Celestial Arch and the others a choice. They could choose not to fight. Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, retreat. The Celestial Thearcha's voice spread throughout the entire battlefield. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was relieved to hear this, but they were also a little disappointed. It looked like the final battle was yet to come. The heavenly human tribe army of 90 million retreated in an orderly manner. The heavenly human tribe united army looked on expressionlessly, as if they were watching the heavenly human tribe army depart. Only the lark looked at a certain direction in the distance with a fearful expression. At this moment, Eastern Heaven Gate. In a sea of light. The female being formed from countless particles of light spoke to a piece of soil in her hand. "What's the situation at the Central Heavenly Gate? I've run into some trouble. And Lin really is a wild card. Aside from that, the Divine Phoenix Maiden has also become an important obstacle, so I won't be able to proceed with my plan for now." The heavenly earth god's voice sounded from within the soil. The woman was silent for a while before she said, "Our plan cannot be changed. If necessary, we can take action to suppress the 2 of them. It's fine as long as you know the severity." "That's easy for you to say. He's becoming more powerful far too quickly. I wonder what he'll be like in a real battle." The heavenly earth god sighed in a resigned voice. "With the help of the heavenly sea god, do you think you can't suppress the 2 of them?" The woman chuckled. "He's still recovering from his injuries," the heavenly earth god replied. "Then after he recovers from his injuries, you can join forces with him to suppress Enlin and kill the Divine Phoenix Maiden," the woman said in a nonchalant manner. In her eyes, Enlin and Su Xiaolan were indeed wild cards, but they weren't enough to pose a threat to their plan. At most, they would be a little troublesome to deal with. "How is your plan progressing?" the heavenly earth god asked. Very smoothly. A carefree smile appeared on the woman's face at the mention of this. We used 20 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings to whittle down 10 million kingdom of the 9 states united army. What a pitiful and laughable bunch of humans. The heavenly human tribe is nothing more than a tool in our eyes. If they knew that there were still a billion heavenly human tribe powerful beings waiting for them in the West Sea, I wonder what they would think. The heavenly earth god was very pleased. We've whittled down the kingdom of the 9 states united army. All we have to do is hold off the 2 most powerful beings of the heaven-crushing sect, and we'll be able to completely eradicate the human race. That billion heavenly human tribe powerful being is our trump card. We can't expose that, the woman cautioned. Don't worry, don't underestimate the heavenly sea god. He's very powerful. The heavenly earth god was not concerned. At Yutong City, Anlin received a report from the Kingdom of the 9 States United Army on the Eastern Front. The Celestial Arch was elated as he recounted the glorious feats on the Eastern Front. However, a peculiar expression appeared on Anlin's face upon reading this report. He seemed to have guessed what their enemies were trying to do. When the Kingdom of the 9 States United Army only had half of its forces left, a billion heavenly human tribe united army suddenly appeared from the west. Were you surprised or not? This was not a bad plan, but they didn't think that their allies would want to become the heavenly Tao, and Lin couldn't help but burst into laughter with this in mind. What's making you so happy? Su Xiaolan carried a bowl of food to Anlin as she looked at him. She was currently wearing a little bear mask. There was no helping it. Although Anlin didn't mind her appearance, she still minded it a lot. She couldn't change her original appearance, so she could only wear a mask to hide it. What was worth celebrating was that even though Su Xiaolan had put on the mask, she had finally calmed down and accepted this reality. She was going to do what she had to do, and her hobby of cooking hadn't changed. Anlin savored the delicious dishes in front of him before handing the report to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan was also elated after reading the report. 10 million casualties and over 20 million enemies killed? That's a good thing. No wonder you're smiling so happily. Anlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. He was smiling so happily only because he had seen through the heavenly human tribe's scheme, speaking of which, the heavenly sea god should be making his move soon, right? At this moment, on the western border of the Tai Chu continent, within a boundless ocean, countless sea monsters beat their war drums. Over 20 million sea monsters formed a formation in the ocean, unleashing an earth-shattering aura. Lan Xiaoni's fishtail was coiled up, and she was sitting on a huge colorful bubble that hovered at the center of the formation. This was the first large-scale battle the heavenly sea god was engaged in against the West Sea heavenly human tribe, so she naturally had to lead the army in person. She could mobilize an army of over 40 million sea monsters, but this battle was only a test, so she didn't want to mobilize her entire army. Aside from the 20 million sea monsters, there were also 5 million Holy Martial Clan and 5 million True Demon Tribe living beings who were completely at Lan Xiaoni's beck and call. In the past, the West Sea Alliance had been guarding the Western Heavenly Gate. Now that the Heavenly Sea God had appeared, all of the other powers on the Tai Chu continent were starting to panic. Even though the West Sea Alliance didn't request for reinforcements, they still sent their most powerful army to reinforce them. The West Sea Alliance was the most important stronghold on the Western Front, so they couldn't be allowed to fall. Lan Xiaoni looked at the heavenly human tribe united army in the distance, and a solemn expression appeared on her face as she waved a hand through the air. West Sea Alliance Army, heed my command. Chapter 1986. The battle had begun. The West Sea Alliance consisted of 20 million sea monsters, 5 million True Demon Tribe cultivators, and 5 million Holy Martial Clan cultivators. A terrifying wave of 30 million cultivators surged toward the heavenly human tribe cultivators, who only numbered 20 million. the celestial human tribe members flew through the air, unleashing one holy light attack after another. Pure white holy light continuously descended, illuminating the entire sky. Boom, boom, boom. The holy light shot into the ocean, causing the water to splash violently. The sea monsters approached through the seabed, but the heavenly human tribe's holy light was extremely penetrative, and it could easily pierce through the sea and the bodies of the sea monsters. One by one, the sea demons screamed miserably. Then, they died and floated to the surface. This scene was like a fish being fried. Of course, the sea monsters were no pushovers, either. Streaks of extremely concentrated water imbued with extremely high energy shot into the sky from the ocean, piercing through the bodies of the heavenly human tribe powerful beings one after another like sharp spears, inflicting severe injuries on them as they plummeted into the ocean. All of the heavenly human tribe cultivators who fell into the ocean, regardless of whether they were dead or severely wounded, were devoured by the piranhas without exception. These piranhas had no intelligence, and they didn't belong to Lan Xiaoni's army. However, there were hundreds of millions of them in the ocean, and their favorite food was the corpses of heavenly human tribe cultivators. The true demons also had black bat wings, and they rose into the air before unleashing a series of dark magic spells to clash with the heavenly human tribe powerful beings. Black and white energy rings intertwined in the air. Those who didn't know better would think it was an epic battle between an angel and a devil. The Holy Martial clan was in an awkward situation. They didn't have wings, and they couldn't swim, so they could only tread on the waves. Most of these 5 million Holy Martial clan powerful beings were close-quarters combat powerful beings, and they could only run for their lives in the face of the concentrated holy light cannon fire. One by one, their brothers were smashed to death by the holy light as they ran. However, this did not make them afraid. Instead, it aroused their fighting spirit. The 5 million Holy Martial clan cultivators suffered heavy casualties as they approached the Holy Martial monarch, and they were almost smashed into the ground. But finally they approached the heavenly human tribe united army. Bang, bang, bang! All of them stomped on the surface of the ocean, causing the surface of the ocean to cave in. Their bodies shot into the sky like rockets, and they unleashed their fists right before the shocked heavenly human tribe cultivators' eyes. Bang, bang, bang! The heavenly human tribe living beings didn't even get a chance to resist before their bodies were smashed into smithereens by the Holy Martial clan powerful beings. The Holy Martial clan was the tribe that was most proficient in combat, and their bodies were also the most heaven-defying. After the Holy Martial tribe drew closer to the heavenly human tribe, their casualties began to mount. That's right, the members of the Holy Martial clan were being beaten up like cowards when they were running from a distance. However, once they got closer, they would beat them up like a coward. The heavenly human tribe great general was so frightened that he hurriedly began to issue commands. Spread out, quickly spread out. Raise the altitude. Stay away from the sea. The heavenly human tribe was caught off guard by this sudden attack, and they hurriedly changed their battle strategy. However, just as they thought they could widen the distance between them and launch a high-altitude attack, the sea suddenly roared. Then, the seawater within a radius of several thousand miles soared into the sky and gathered in the center, forming a giant water net that kept pressing down. The celestial clan's army was shocked. How was this miraculous scene accomplished? Thousands of miles of seawater, even a heavenly god wouldn't be able to do this. Long live Alliance Leader Lan! Kill all of the heavenly humans. The West Sea Alliance United Army knew that this was the work of their alliance leader, and they became even more excited. All of the true demon tribe and Holy Martial clan powerful beings turned toward the center of the battle formation, where the woman exuding a paramount aura and a divine halo above her head were also struck by an indescribable sense of awe and veneration. This West Sea Alliance leader's performance was simply breathtaking. In fact, it was even comparable to a heavenly god's performance. It was also at this moment that an ethereal voice imbued with paramount might erupted throughout the sea. As expected, the power of the heavenly gods is very powerful. Everything that Mistress Ocean has done is correct. However, we still encountered a bit of a problem. We have to correct this misconception. In an instant, a strange light reflected in the sky and flashed by. The huge net of seawater that was pressing down from the sky stopped for a moment and showed signs of collapsing. At this moment, countless streaks of silvery gray liquid as sharp as blades fell from the sky, slicing the massive seawater net into pieces. A heavenly god appeared in the air above the heavenly human tribe united army with a paramount divine might exuding from its body. We meet again, Alliance leader Lan. A faint smile appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face as she looked at the heavenly god in the distance. Heavenly liquid god? Last time, you were defeated like a stray dog, running away faster than anyone else. This time, who gave you the courage to stand in front of me again? This was none other than the heavenly liquid god that Lan Xiaoni had interacted with before. The heavenly liquid god's body trembled with rage upon hearing this. Kokoku. If it weren't for your lover, we would have killed you long ago. It would have been fine if you hid in the immortal land above water, but who would have thought that you would dare to come out again? If we can kill you once, we can kill you twice. The heavenly god with a body that resembled an oval mirror screeched. It was none other than the heavenly mirror god of the western heavenly gate. Who would have thought that you two would come again? Are you here to help me warm up? Lan Xiaoni flicked her tail and flew into the air. She spread open her arms, and the boundless west sea began to roar and churn at the same time. This divine might struck fear into the hearts of both the heavenly human tribe and the spirit fish clan. The heavenly human tribe united army was wondering if they would be insta-killed by the spirit fish clan. The spirit fish clan allies were wondering if they would also be reduced to corpses by Alliance leader Lan's wrath. Even the heavenly liquid god and the heavenly mirror god wore grave expressions. After their last battle, Lan Xiaoni's control over the powers of the heavenly gods seemed to have improved significantly. Did living beings on the Tai Chu continent really suffer less from the heavenly Tao when using the powers of the heavenly gods? Before Nuwa mended the heavens, they were already a little inferior to Lan Xiaoni in a one-on-one battle. Now that Nuwa's mending of the heavens had progressed to the third stage, they were even more severely restricted, and Lan Xiaoni had become more powerful. As such, they were no match for Lan Xiaoni in a one-on-one battle. However, it wasn't as if they were unprepared. Lan Ye, Ming He, you can come out now, the heavenly mirror god suddenly said. Immediately afterward, seawater began to surge behind the West Sea Alliance army. A woman with a head of long, blue hair and snowy white skin emerged from the surface of the ocean. An inky black man with long, black hair and crimson eyes also emerged from the surface of the ocean. He was holding an inky black chain in his hands. As soon as they appeared, a terrifying heavenly god aura crushed down upon the West Sea Alliance's army without any reservation, striking all living beings with a sense of asphyxiation. Crap, those are heavenly gods! They're divine heaven stage, heavenly humans. The West Sea Alliance powerful beings' expressions shifted drastically. Lan Xiaoni couldn't even smile anymore. When did they get here? She could sense the entire ocean with her powers of the heavenly gods, so why couldn't she detect these two heavenly gods? Ha ha! Surprised, right? A smug smile appeared on the heavenly mirror god's face. My mirrored flower, moon, reflection space can carry divine heaven stage heavenly humans and allow them to jump out of any mirror nearby. Seawater is also a type of mirror, so, the heavenly mirror god's smile gradually became cruel. Lan Xiaoni, you've been surrounded by the four of us. Come. Let's attack together. Capture Lan Xiaoni alive and offer her to the heavenly sea god. Chapter 1987. The sea demons' expressions changed drastically. Their leader Lan had been surrounded again? For such a delicate and beautiful young girl to suddenly be surrounded by 4 heavenly gods with ill intentions, anyone would be worried, even if this young girl had great power. "You dare to attack me? Don't forget that I have people backing me up." Lan Xiaoni harumphed coldly as a frosty expression appeared on her face. "Ha ha! Are you talking about your boss and Lin?" A smug smile appeared on the heavenly mirror god's face, as if everything was under his control. The heavenly sea god has already activated the West Sea Canopy to isolate the teleportation spell formation. He can't use the teleportation spell formation to reinforce you, so he can only fly here. Do you think he'll be able to save you in time? How could this be? A dazed expression appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face, and her body swayed slightly. She was in disbelief. The heavenly sea god had mobilized himself to kill her? Weren't there rumors circulating in the outside world that the heavenly sea god couldn't participate due to special reasons? A seductive smile appeared on heavenly goddess Lan Ya's face. You should be proud that the heavenly sea god personally came to deal with you. Although the heavenly sea god paid a heavy price, it was all worth it in order for the heavenly god of water's power to develop further. "Let's go!" the heavenly mirror god roared as it pounced toward Lan Xiaoni. The heavenly liquid god, heavenly goddess Lanya, and heavenly god Ming River sprang into action at the same time before charging toward Lan Xiaoni. "Protect Leader Lan. Protect Alliance Leader Lan with our lives." Gu Yu, Yu Feiyu, Lan Xingyang, and all the other Dao integration stage super mighty figures sprang into action. "There's no need to protect me. All you have to do is defeat the enemies before you." Lan Xiaoni dove headfirst into the ocean and swam away from the army. She had already sent a message to Enlin. As long as she could stall for time, even if Enlin were to fly, he would be able to come here. She just had to stall for time. The ocean was her home ground. With a gentle flick of her tail, she could leap hundreds of miles away. Her speed was unbelievably fast. However, the other 4 heavenly gods were not to be trifled with. The divine halo above the heavenly mirror god's head lit up. True and false switch, illusionary mist mirror. Buzz, the energy instantly spread between heaven and earth. Lan Xiaoni was struck by the power of the explosion, and she completely lost her sense of direction in that instant. She felt as if she had been plunged into a boundless world of mirrors, and everything before her eyes was a repetitive reflection. "Humph! You want to bewitch me with a mere mirror illusion?" Lan Xiaoni harumphed coldly, and the seawater around her, which was imbued with the paramount power of laws, exploded violently. Boom! Kacha, the illusion shattered like a mirror falling onto the ground. Lan Xiaoni broke through the heavenly mirror god's attack, but she was also delayed by a second or two. At this moment, the other 3 heavenly gods' attacks were already upon her. Streaks of scorching platinum liquid that were capable of boiling the entire ocean fell from the sky before enshrouding Lan Xiaoni from all directions. Lan Xiaoni twisted her slender body to evade the oncoming platinum-colored liquid. Lanya and Mingi, the 2 gods, had already activated 6 of their divine rings as they chased after him. An extremely terrifying and powerful aura was released, causing the surrounding space to freeze. Lanya landed gracefully on the surface of the sea like a butterfly. Her nimble toes lightly tapped on the surface of the sea, and a terrifyingly high temperature crazily eroded the sea from the tip of her toes, causing the sea within a radius of several hundred miles to boil. "It's so hot!" A pained expression appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face. At this moment, an inky black chain parted the ocean before wrapping itself around Lan Xiaoni's slender waist. "Don't go too far. Do you really think I'm a pushover?" Lan Xiaoni was enraged, and an extremely dazzling light erupted from the divine halo above her head as she violently swung her body. Boom! A massive whirlpool over 1,000 kilometers in size suddenly appeared in the ocean before rising into the sky to form a devastating tornado. Regardless of whether it was the scorching seawater, the scorching liquid, or the inky black chain imbued with killing intent, all of them were swept away by this unimaginably terrifying tornado. Lanya screamed as she was flung into the sky by the tornado, where her body was sliced countless times by the countless water blades imbued within the tornado. The heavenly liquid god and heavenly god Mingi were also caught up in the shockwaves, and they hurtled back in retreat. The heavenly mirror god was a little dumbstruck. Was Lan Xiaoni really that powerful? It had just received the mission to capture Lan Xiaoni alive, and it had thought that the mission would be as safe as a mountain with 4 heavenly gods working together. However, it didn't think that they would encounter such terrifying resistance. Gu Yu and the others, who were guarding the West Sea Alliance army in the distance, were also extremely astonished at the sight of the gargantuan tornado sweeping up trillions of tons of seawater. It was as if they were witnessing a miracle. If this tornado were to crash down upon the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army, it would be able to crush at least a few million soldiers. Soon, the 4 heavenly gods around the tornado continued to attack the massive waterspout. Devastating spells imbued with extremely powerful laws of nature bombarded the waterspout relentlessly, instantly transforming the surrounding sea into a land of destruction. The center of their battle was already over 5,000 kilometers away from the 2 armies, but the shock waves from their battle constantly destabilized the formations of both armies, thereby sweeping up gargantuan tsunamis that engulfed many armies. This was extremely detrimental to the West Sea Alliance United Army. The seawater suddenly became extremely scorching hot, and the sea monsters were in extreme pain. The gargantuan tsunamis would sweep away some holy martial clan cultivators with insufficient cultivation bases. Fortunately, the heavenly human tribe only had 10 great generals. In contrast, the West Sea Alliance had 5 Dao integration stage super mighty figures, and with the addition of 1 Dao integration stage super mighty figure each from the Holy Martial Clan and True Demon Tribe, they had a total of 7 Dao integration stage super mighty figures, which was more than enough to crush the West Sea Alliance army. Just as an earth-shattering battle was about to erupt in the West Sea. Within Yutong City, Anlin instantly flared up with rage upon receiving Lan Xiaoni's call for help. Outrageous! They've deployed 4 heavenly gods to hunt down Lan Xiaoni? Don't they know that I'm protecting Lan Xiaoni? How dare they deploy such a powerful force? Don't blame me for being merciless. I, Anlin, don't want to fight, but I'm not afraid of an all-out war. Anlin stood up with unquenchable rage burning in his eyes. Xiaolan, I have to go to the West Sea to save Lan Xiaoni. Anlin spoke. Su Xiaolan was also quite concerned upon hearing this, and she also stood up. I'll go with you. If we encounter the heavenly sea god, there's no need for that. You stay here and guard against the heavenly earth god. Anlin immediately turned her down. With my current power, even if I encounter the heavenly sea god, I'll still be able to escape. Su Xiaolan was not an indecisive person, and she immediately nodded. Then make sure to stay safe. Anlin ran to the teleportation spell formation and tried to teleport to the immortal land above water, only to find that the spatial passageway had been cut off by some kind of mighty power. Holy F***CK. Anlin immediately tore open a spatial rift and rushed toward the West Sea. On the West Sea of the Tai Chu continent, the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army of 20 million had suffered heavy casualties, and their numbers were soon reduced to 15 million. They were also starting to feel like they were going to be completely wiped out if things continued like this. Retreat! Everyone, retreat! The Heavenly Human Tribe Great General yelled. The Heavenly Human Tribe United Army quickly fled toward the Western Heavenly Gate. Charge! Don't let the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army get away. Charge, charge, charge! The West Sea Alliance Army's morale was extremely high as they pursued the enemy. Right at this moment, the battle in the extremely far distance also drew to a conclusion. Lan Xiaoni was on the brink of death, and her entire body was riddled with wounds. Her entire body had been bound by a few indestructible liquid ropes, and the black chains had wound themselves tightly around her snowy white waist, unleashing countless divine symbols to restrict her power. Ming He held on to the other end of the chains and flew into the distance with Lan Xiaoni in tow. The other 3 heavenly gods were all wounded, and they also flew toward the far West Sea. Chapter 1988. After defeating the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army, the West Sea Alliance Army chased them for over 5,000 kilometers and killed over 1 million enemy soldiers before returning. However, just as they returned, they discovered to their despair that their alliance leader, Lan Xiaoni, had been captured alive by 4 heavenly gods. This was like a bolt of lightning that struck the entire West Sea Alliance army, and all of them were rooted to the spot, momentarily forgetting to think. Soon, sea monsters began to roar with grief and indignation, offering to save Alliance leader Lan. However, all of these enraged powerful beings were repressed by Lan Xingyang. They were going to go into the West Sea to save Lan Xiaoni? Wasn't that the same as delivering food to their enemies? Everyone, calm down. Don't be nervous. Our alliance leader Lan hasn't perished yet. She's only been captured. Our enemies are 4 heavenly gods, so we won't be able to save her even if we go. Lan Xingyang stood at the center of the army formation as he spoke in a loud voice. His words did not calm all of the powerful beings present, and a mighty figure immediately interjected. Are we just going to sit back and do nothing just because of this? Alliance leader Lan is the symbol of our alliance. If she's gone, what's the point of our alliance? I'm willing to give up everything for a chance to save Alliance leader Lan. That's right. We'll protect Alliance leader Lan even if it costs us our lives. Charge. We'll just die. Countless experts on the ocean shouted in unison. Lan Xiaoni had built up an extremely high prestige over the past 100 years. Not only in the hearts of the Spirit Fish clan, but even in the hearts of the Heavenly Turtle tribe and other sea tribes, she held an extremely important position and had a group of extremely loyal followers. Lan Xingyang was not angered by this. Instead, he was extremely pleased. His daughter was even more powerful than he was, and she was even more popular than he was. As a father, he was naturally extremely pleased. He immediately replied, I'm not saying we won't save Alliance leader Lan. Someone will definitely go and save her. Have you forgotten who her backer is? Someone immediately let loose a cry of surprise upon hearing this. It's sect leader Enlin, Heavenly Lightning God, Lord of Transcendence, Tamer of Divine Lightning. All of the West Sea Alliance powerful beings yelled with excitement, and they felt as if they had been enlightened. Alliance leader Lan has so many backers? A sea monster exclaimed. The air suddenly fell silent. All the sea demons stared at that sea demon expressionlessly. That sea demon immediately felt its scalp go numb, and it knew that things were not looking good. At this time, a large number of sea demon powerhouses were already pouncing towards it. The shivering siren was taken away by a group of sirens on suspicion of being a spy. Lan Xingyang continued with a smile. That's right, Alliance leader Lan's backer is Enlin. I believe Enlin is already on his way here. This battle belongs to him, so please trust him. The West Sea Alliance army fell silent upon hearing this. If they were asked to believe someone else, they would probably scoff at it. How could anyone believe in such a big matter? However, when Lan Xingyang asked them to believe in Enlin, they couldn't say anything to object. How many miracles had Enlin created? Enlin's halo was simply too dazzling. In addition to his power, how many people in the entire Tai Chu continent could match his combat prowess? Needless to say, having Enlin as their backer gave them a sense of security. The West Sea Alliance army began to retreat. Before they even had a chance to return to the immortal land above water, space suddenly split open, and a man in a flowing white robe appeared in the air above the army. Where's Lan Xiaoni? The man asked. Ah, it's sect leader Enlin. Sect leader Enlin is finally here. Sect Leader Enlin, please go and save Alliance Leader Lan. All of the West Sea Alliance soldiers yelled with ecstasy, and some of them even shed tears of joy, as if they had grasped onto their last hope. Enlin had come to their rescue, and he had come so quickly. Don't be in such a hurry. I need the most concise and effective information, Enlin instructed. Lan Xingyang and the other Dao integration stage super mighty figures immediately provided him with a recount of everything they knew. Enlin became more and more enraged as he listened. How dare they? Even the heavenly sea god has come? I was wondering why they couldn't use teleportation spell formations to come here. Who would have thought that they would mobilize 4 heavenly gods and a paramount heavenly god just to take care of a frail woman? Lan Xingyang wanted to say something, but he hesitated. Lan Xiaoni was not a frail woman. She had almost killed 4 heavenly gods. I've already told you that underling Lan is under my protection. Do you really think I'm joking? Enlin's aura became more and more terrifying, as if he were the wrath of the heavens that threatened to engulf the entire world. The West Sea United Army, which consisted of over 20 million soldiers, was struck by a sense of pressure that was many times more terrifying than that of a normal heavenly god. Sect Leader Enlin, I'm willing to go with you to save Alliance Leader Lan. A Dao integration stage true demon super mighty figure stepped forward and stared at Enlin with a fervent expression. He was actually very much in awe of this man, and he dreamed of fighting alongside him one day. Enlin looked at this thin and frail true demon tribe super mighty figure with mysterious golden veined patterns all over his body. Your demon Lord Lingu? The man was extremely flattered, and he immediately replied, That's me. A holy martial clan super mighty figure with a smooth, streamlined body also stepped forward. A rare hint of respect appeared on his face. I'm also willing to accompany sect leader Enlin into the lion's den. Enlin was a little surprised to see this super mighty figure. You're one of the 3 founding elders of the Holy Palace of Martial Dao, the true element martial lord? That's right. The Holy Martial Clan super mighty figure nodded. Enlin recalled that he had once fought alongside one of the 3 founding elders of the Holy Palace of Martial Dao, the Chaotic Element Martial Lord. The Chaotic Element Martial Lord was a super mighty figure at the Dao Integration Pinnacle stage, while this True Element Martial Lord was only at the Dao Integration Intermediate stage. Gu Yu, Yu Feiyu, Lan Xingyang, and the others also stepped forward and requested to accompany them. Enlin thought about it for a moment. As long as Demon Lord Lingu, the True Element Martial Lord, and Lan Xingyang, the 3 Dao integration stage super mighty figures would accompany them, and the rest of them would guard the immortal land above water in case the enemy counterattacked. In reality, he didn't really need the combat prowess of these 3 super mighty figures. However, as the mighty heavenly lightning god, how could he not have some extravagance? He naturally had to have some underlings cheer him on from the sidelines. This was extravagance. Enlin felt like Demon Lord Lingu, the True Element Martial Lord, and Lan Xingyang were perfect for this role. He glanced at the 3 people behind him to discover that Lan Xingyang was smiling at him. Alright, Lan Xingyang wasn't an underling, and he didn't dare to make Lan Xingyang his underling. Enlin looked into the distance. There's no time to lose. Let's rescue Lan Xiaoni right away, and let the heavenly human tribe know that they can't bully my underlings. Chapter 1989. Demon Lord Lingu flew through the air with excitement on his face, as he looked at the white-robed figure before him. He finally had a chance to fight alongside Enlin. Who would have thought that his dream would come true so easily? The True Element Martial Lord was also feeling the same way as Demon Lord Lingu. He was actually an admirer of Enlin as well. Not only that, but he had also been thinking about sparring with Enlin. However, this thought completely disappeared after the news that Enlin was on par with the Heavenly Earth God. He didn't want to be killed by Enlin during a sparring match. Lan Xingyang was also very excited, but his excitement was different from the other 2. Unlin had risked his life to save Lan Xiaoni, so their relationship must be quite special. Otherwise, why would he risk his life to save her despite knowing that there were so many heavenly gods and paramount heavenly gods at the western heavenly gate? How far had Unlin and Lan Xiaoni progressed? Lan Xingyang felt like there was no one in this world who was worthy of such an exceptional daughter, aside from Unlin. Hence, his expression toward Unlin became more and more gentle, and he was becoming more and more fond of him. They advanced very quickly, and it didn't take long for them to feel as if heaven and earth had been flipped upside down. Originally, there was an ocean below them, but now there was a clear, mirror-like sky. They could even see white clouds drifting beneath their feet, and the sky above them had become a surging ocean. We've arrived at the end of the West Sea, the heavenly realm. Lan Xingyang spoke with rapt attention. This is the heavenly realm? Unlin surveyed his surroundings with curiosity. This was the first time he had come here. This world was upside down, but he didn't feel like this was going against common sense. Instead, it was imbued with the laws of heaven and earth, forming some sort of cycle with the Tai Chu continent. At the end of the heavenly realm stood an extremely majestic heavenly gate. In front of the heavenly gate, there were countless heavenly human tribe powerful beings standing guard atop a massive white crystalline ship. It looked like a mobile defensive fortress, but it also looked a little like the legendary ark that carried hope and future with it. Unlin scanned the area with his divine sense and discovered that there were over 60 million heavenly human tribe cultivators up ahead. This was a surprisingly large number of heavenly human tribe cultivators, even more than the army they had mobilized before enemy attack. The enemy is coming. Prepare for battle. The highest level of danger. Unlin is here. On the massive moving battleships in the distance, alarms began to blare, and all of the heavenly human tribe powerful beings fell into battle formations. Several million heavenly human tribe powerful beings flew out of the battleships and unleashed holy light to form a massive formation. I'm here to find Lan Xiaoni. You better hand her over in one piece. Otherwise, don't blame me for flattening the entire western heavenly gate. Unlin's voice was like that of an enraged heavenly god, making heaven and earth tremor violently. All of the heavenly humans were shocked by his words. However, they all looked as if they were unafraid of death. Lan Xiaoni belongs to the heavenly sea god. You're dreaming if you want to save her. You will never know where she is, and you will never be able to save her. We won't tell you even if we die. We don't know anyway. The powerhouses of the heavenly human tribe shouted loudly, as if they were ready to risk it all. Lan Xingyang pulled out a bloodline sensing jade pendant with furrowed brows. I can't sense where Lan Xiaoni is. My connection with her has been cut off by an unimaginable power. The heavenly human tribe great generals continued to roar with mocking laughter. Ha ha! The heavenly sea god is here in person. Do you think you have the right to know where Lan Xiaoni is? Dream on. It's not too late for you to run now. Otherwise, none of you will be able to escape once the heavenly sea god returns. Lan Xiaoni is dead for sure. Unlin chuckled coldly upon hearing this. Do you really think I can't find out where you're hiding, underling Lan? You're underestimating me far too much. The heavenly gods and the paramount heavenly gods are not here, so they must be holding some evil ceremony somewhere, right? Seeing as I've already come to the western heavenly gate, I naturally have a way to find that place. His eyes suddenly became colorless and shapeless, and they began to reflect all things between heaven and earth as invisible ripples expanded outward for over 5,000 kilometers. Divine simulation technique, activate. Others might not be able to find it, but Unlin possessed an extraordinarily powerful divination spell technique. All of the clues between heaven and earth began to flow into his mind. The trajectories of every single speck of energy in the atmosphere, the trajectories of every single particle of water in the ocean, the trajectories of all things between heaven and earth, and the trajectories of all things in this world. where Underling Lawn is located, Unlin suddenly turned toward the northeast, and his shapeless eyes reverted back to black and white. Over there! Unlin and the 3 Dao integration stage super mighty figures behind him flew directly toward the northeast, completely disregarding the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army. All of the Heavenly Human Tribe powerful beings on the massive ship looked at one another. Could it be that Unlin really did discover where Lan Xiaoni is hiding? This was a slap in the face. Should we give chase? Give chase for what? Are we just going to die? With the West Sea Heavenly Vessel, we still have a chance against Unlin. However, our top priority now is to protect the Western Heavenly Gate. Even if Unlin finds the Heavenly Sea God, there's no need to panic. He's definitely no match for the Heavenly Sea God. A powerful Heavenly Human Tribe Great General had spoken, and all of the Heavenly Human Tribe powerful beings had no choice but to obey. The Heavenly Sea God was invincible, so what did they have to fear? Meanwhile, in the eastern region of the Tai Chu continent, following their last victory, the Kingdom of the 9 States United Army engaged in 3 earth-shattering battles with the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army on the Eastern Front. They fought 1 battle a day, and the entire eastern region had become a massive meat grinder with scorched earth in a radius of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. However, what was worth celebrating was that the Kingdom of the 9 States United Army emerged victorious every single time. This was how the Kingdom of the 9 States United Army progressed. Over 90 million became over 80 million, over 80 million became over 70 million, over 70 million became over 60 million. This was how the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army progressed. Over 80 million became over 60 million, over 60 million became over 40 million, over 40 million became over 10 million. As their numbers dwindled, their losses also increased drastically. Their current military strength was completely insufficient. The Kingdom of the 9 States United Army was extremely excited, but they were also quite perplexed. Had the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army gone insane? They wouldn't even need to engage in a decisive battle. Just one more day and the entire Eastern Front would be wiped out. At the Eastern Heavenly Gate, within the Sea of Light, a woman of light held a handful of soil in her hand with a smile. The plan is progressing very smoothly. We've expended over 40 million of the enemy's forces, and the remaining 10 million Heavenly Human Tribe United Army will launch a suicide attack tomorrow. That way, the Kingdom of the 9 States United Army's forces will be halved. The Heavenly Earth God's voice sounded, hee. The West Sea's 1 billion Heavenly Human Tribe United Army is also starting to hatch. In less than a month, the complete Heavenly Human Tribe United Army will appear in the West Sea. When that time comes, what army will be able to stop the 1 billion Heavenly Human Tribe United Army? I'm really looking forward to that day. Those humans must be in despair, right? The woman of light nodded. Whether it's despair or pain, that's not what I care about. It's just that the day when the entire human race will be wiped out is finally upon us. I'm really looking forward to that day. Chapter 1990. On a huge island to the northeast of the Western Heavenly Gate, a spell formation imbued with the paramount nomological laws enshrouded the entire island. From the outside, one could see a blue barrier of light completely enveloping the entire island. The barrier of light appeared very thin, but when one looked directly at it, they felt as if they were looking at a boundless ocean. It was so vast that it struck despair into their hearts. An extremely rich vital energy surged and circulated around the island. Countless exotic flowers and plants bloomed on the island, and all types of extremely rare spirit beasts roamed about. This island was called Shiming Island, and it was an extremely rare holy land for cultivation. The land of Shiming Island was filled with huge white eggs. It looked like an ocean of eggs, and one couldn't even see the end of it. Lan Xiaoni's entire body was bound by liquid ropes, and her slender waist was also bound by black chains. All of her power was suppressed by the countless golden divine symbols on the chains, and she couldn't muster up any strength. Just like that, she was escorted to this island by the 4 heavenly gods. When she saw the boundless number of eggs, her small and exquisite mouth gaped open in shock. This island was actually filled with eggs. Isn't this a little too spectacular? Lan Xiaoni felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. No, my trypophobia is about to act up. What on earth are you guys planning? Why are there so many eggs on this island? Lan Xiaoni asked with a horrified expression. You don't have the right to know about this. This grand plan is destined to shake heaven and earth, and it's destined to stun all living beings on the Tai Chu continent. The Heavenly Mirror God chuckled. The Heavenly Mirror God brought Lan Xiaoni to an extremely intricate, crystal-like, circular spell altar that was embedded with all types of rare gems. In the center of the spell altar, there was a blue water person with no facial features standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Lan Xiaoni's expression shifted. She knew who that water person was. It was one of the 6 paramount heavenly gods, the Heavenly Sea God. The Heavenly Sea God turned to look at Lan Xiaoni, and his voice traveled over like the crashing waves of an ocean. We meet again, Alliance Leader Lan. You guys were lucky enough to escape last time, but you won't be so lucky this time. Lan Xiaoni gritted her teeth and glared at the water giant with her beautiful blue eyes. Don't celebrate too early. Big Boss and Lin will be here soon, and then he'll beat all of you into the ground. Ha ha ha! The Heavenly Sea God roared with laughter as a disdainful expression appeared on his face. The West Sea is so vast, how could he possibly know where you are? Even if we take 10,000 steps back, even if he really knows where you are, he won't be able to break my sky-sea formation. Do you know why I chose this place to unleash my magic on you? It's because this place is protected by my most powerful spell formation, the Sky-Sea Grand Formation. Even a god of creation wouldn't be able to do anything here. Even though I'm heavily injured and couldn't attack because I forcefully attacked just now, I'm invincible as long as I have this formation. A confident expression appeared on the Heavenly Sea God's face. The Heavenly Mirror God, the Heavenly Liquid God, Heavenly Goddess Lanya, and Heavenly God Dark River all wore proud expressions upon hearing this. Lan Xiaoni was still glaring at the Heavenly Sea God with an enraged expression. What are you going to do to me? The Heavenly Sea God chuckled. I bestowed upon you the power of the heavenly gods, but you're using the power of the heavenly gods to oppose me. I don't need the power of disobedience, so I'm going to make you obedient. Heavenly God Dark River tossed Lan Xiaoni toward the center of the spell altar. Lan Xiaoni let loose a muffled groan as she tumbled to the ground. Her curvaceous body struggled with all her might, and an expression of shock and horror gradually appeared on her face as she looked at the water giant making its way toward her. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to me? I'm going to modify your memories so that you'll be completely obedient to me. The Heavenly Sea God smiled. Lan Xiaoni was in a panic and her features turned deathly pale. Let go of underling Lan. An extremely enraged voice suddenly sounded from the distance. Lan Xiaoni's body trembled, and she raised her head to look at the sky in the distance. Her beautiful eyes shimmered as she yelled excitedly, Big Boss and Lin, I'm here. And Lin saw the wound-riddled Lan Xiaoni, as well as the Heavenly Sea God and the other 4 heavenly gods. His face was filled with rage. How dare you bully my underling to such an extent? Demon Lord Linggu and the True Element Martial Lord were both extremely excited. We've found her. Alliance Leader Lan really is here. Sect Leader and Lin's methods are truly unfathomable. We clearly had no clue where she was, but he was actually able to find this place with such precision. Just as the 2 super mighty beings were exclaiming in admiration, Lan Xingyang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Lan Xiaoni's vitals weren't injured. He turned his expectant gaze toward Lin again. Lin's rage soared to the heavens, and a massive aura crashed downward. The Heavenly Sea spell formation on Shiming Island automatically glowed with a blue light, completely isolating Enlin's unparalleled aura. Not even his aura was able to seep into the spell formation. The four heavenly gods were initially astonished that Enlin had actually found this place. However, they quickly regained their composure. Enlin, don't waste your energy. This is the most powerful spell formation set up by our heavenly sea god. There's no way you can break through it. The heavenly mirror god sneered. The heavenly liquid god also yelled in a stern voice, everyone in the world is saying that you're evenly matched with the heavenly earth god. However, all the heavenly gods in our circle know that the heavenly earth god didn't even use his full strength to fight you. If the heavenly earth god wanted to kill you, it would be a piece of cake for him, and the same goes for the heavenly sea god. You're still trying to provoke the heavenly sea god? Are you courting death? Who knows? Enlin is only here to put on an act. He's just going to take a stroll around the western heavenly gate. Then, he'll go back and tell everyone that he's evenly matched with the heavenly sea god? Heavenly goddess Lanya covered her mouth and giggled. A look of disdain appeared on the heavenly sea god's face as he looked at Enlin. Enlin, go back. There's no way you can break through my heavenly sea spell formation with your strength. How will I know if I don't try? A golden halo appeared behind Enlin. He activated his 5-elemental body and unleashed a full-force punch toward the spell formation before him. Boom! A terrifying explosion of energy erupted. The power of the 5 elements crashed down in a frenzy, and it was as if even the sky was about to be shattered. A fist indentation appeared on the blue spell formation's protective wall, and it trembled violently like the roar of the ocean. However, despite the roar, it showed no signs of breaking through. Enlin's power seemed to have sunk into the boundless depths of the ocean, and it was completely absorbed by the spell formation. The heavenly sea god clasped his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Don't waste your energy. There's no way you can break through it." At this moment, the true element martial lord suddenly let out a cry of surprise. "Look at this island. Why are there so many eggs?" Gasp. "There are at least 1 billion of these eggs, right? What are they trying to do?" Demon Lord Linggu was also astonished. His eyes widened as he stared at the endless number of eggs on the island. Some of them even had cracks on them, and they looked as if they were about to break out of their shells. What did 1 billion mean? If an army could be hatched from these eggs, then it would definitely be a terrifying disaster for the Tai Chu continent. So you're still plotting something? I definitely won't let you succeed. Enlin happened to discover the heavenly sea god scheme, and a resolute expression appeared on his face. Today, I, Enlin, will wipe these eggs off the face of this world, even if I have to fight to the death. Chapter 1991. Enlin was filled with righteous indignation, and his expression became even more resolute. He punched the spell formation again. The heavenly sea spell formation caved in again. It looked like it was going to break, but it didn't. It was as if he were hammering a boundless ocean. He could create countless waves, but he definitely couldn't hammer the entire ocean into oblivion. Let's help out too. Lan Xingyang joined the fray. Demon Lord Linggu and True Element Martial Lord also unleashed their most powerful attacks toward the spell formation. However, their attacks were completely ineffective. The heavenly sea god laughed. "Don't waste your energy. My spell formation is imbued with my paramount power of the heavenly gods. How are you going to break it with your measly strength?" Enlin listened to the heavenly sea god's words. Paramount power of the heavenly gods. He recalled how he had injured the heavenly earth god during his battle with the heavenly earth god. With a thought, an extremely pure and domineering heaven-crushing power surged from his fist. Fist of the heavenly Tao. The power of the 5 elements and the power of heaven-crushing surged from Enlin's fist at the same time as he punched the spell formation ferociously. The gigantic golden fist was surrounded by 5-colored energy, and it was as if it could destroy the heavens. It roared as it crashed into the heavenly sea spell formation. The terrifying might of the fist instantly caused the ocean within a radius of several thousand kilometers to churn and tremble. Boom! The gigantic golden fist smashed into the blue barrier of light, causing it to cave in. The four heavenly gods within the spell formation were all shocked. It was as if the spell formation was about to shatter in the next second, and the terrifying fist was about to land on their bodies. It was an earth-shattering strike. The heavenly gods finally remembered that Enlil might not be as powerful as a paramount heavenly god, but he had killed more heavenly gods than they could count with two hands. Heavenly goddess Lanya couldn't help but take a step back, and her face paled slightly. Thankfully, even though the spell formation was warped and deformed, it was still able to completely erase the power of Enlin's fist. Enlil couldn't help but falter. Even that didn't work? What the hell was the heavenly sea god doing? Making the island's defenses so sturdy, and then asking me to come and destroy these eggs? Are they crazy? Enlil, even though your attack is effective against the heavenly earth god, it's useless against me. The earth is the earth, and the ocean is the ocean. You don't understand the characteristics of my formation at all. The heavenly sea god chuckled. Enlil picked up on some hint. Were they going to attack the ocean? At this moment, the heavenly mirror god suddenly spoke. Master Ocean, how about we take care of Lan Xiaoni before Enlil breaks in? Enlil and the heavenly sea god's expressions both shifted upon hearing this. Holy F***CK, when did the heavenly mirror god become so sensible? What do you mean by taking advantage of the fact that Enlil hasn't broken in yet? Are you saying that Enlil can still break in? The heavenly sea god's eyes narrowed as he glowered at the heavenly mirror god. The heavenly mirror god shuddered, and he hurriedly lowered his head. That's not what I meant, humph. Don't underestimate my heavenly sea formation. My formation is supported by the entire ocean. No matter how powerful Enlil is, he can't wipe out the entire West Sea. He'll never be able to break through my formation. The heavenly sea god harumphed coldly. Enlin's eyes lit up. He had finally found a breakthrough point. Shiming Island was extremely large, and it covered an area of about 500 kilometers. Meanwhile, the heavenly sea formation covered an area of about 600 kilometers. Since that was the case, the crimson light around the edges of the rotating golden halo behind him suddenly lit up. It was extremely dazzling, and the energy converging at the center suddenly increased explosively. At the same time, a crimson divine halo appeared above his head. Heavenly fire, activate. Come out, holy vermilion flame, demonic star holy flame, great sun holy flame, setting moon holy flame, heavenly void holy flame, golden dragon holy flame, mutant blood phoenix holy flame. Boom! Boundless holy flames burst forth from Enlin's body, incinerating the sky and boiling the ocean. Not only were these 7 holy flames extremely hot, but they also contained extremely profound Tao intent. In fact, they were even fused with the power of the new 5 elements, the power of the heavenly gods, and the power of heaven crushing. Just how terrifying would the power unleashed by the fusion of these 3 holy flames be? Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Linggu, and the True Element Martial Lord were clearly not targeted by these flames. However, they all retreated in fear and unleashed spell techniques to defend themselves. If they were to accidentally come into contact with these flames, their lives would be in grave danger. The monstrous flames expanded rapidly. 50 kilometers, several hundred kilometers, over 500 kilometers. Soon, the holy flames engulfed the entire island and burned furiously. Enlil actually wants to burn the formation? The heavenly liquid god couldn't help but chuckle. Isn't he overthinking things? Does he think that fire is the bane of water? Heavenly goddess Lanya shook her head. This is the water of the heavenly sea god, the paramount being of heaven and earth. How ignorant is he to think that he can use fire to burn the heavenly sea formation? He's just wasting our time. The heavenly mirror god yelled, Heavenly sea god, Why don't we contact the heavenly Earth God and ask him to come over? Then, we'll flank him and kill Enlil. The heavenly sea god's lips twitched as he turned to look at the heavenly mirror god. Why do you have so much to say? If the heavenly Earth God comes over, are you going to abandon the central heavenly gate? The heaven-crushing sect is also eyeing us like a tiger watching its prey. Furthermore, this is the ocean. The heavenly Earth God doesn't have the ability to instantly teleport, so he won't be able to unleash his full power. Even if he comes, he might not be able to kill Enlil. The heavenly mirror god finally came to a sudden realization, and it wiped the frost off its mirror. Strange, why is there frost on my mirror? Boom. The earth suddenly tremored violently. The four heavenly gods' expressions shifted. Heavenly goddess Lanya was shocked. What happened? No, something's not right. Heavenly god Ming he looked toward the scorching holy flames outside the formation. Then, a divine light flickered and pierced through the dense holy flames. His pupils contracted abruptly. What Enlil wants to burn isn't our heavenly sea formation, but the heavenly mirror god released its mirror and exclaimed in shock. It's the ocean outside Shiming Island. The heavenly gods were all shocked. They looked toward the heavenly mirror god's large mirror. Looking down from the sky, they could see that the 7 types of terrifying holy flames had already converged to form a vast ocean that stretched for 1,500 kilometers. The extremely scorching flames had already burned a gigantic hole in the ocean outside Shiming Island. Shiming Island was like an island that was suspended above a concave ocean. There was no seawater in all directions, including the bottom. Instead, there was a boundless amount of holy flames. The heavenly gods all thought of a possibility. The heavenly sea formation relied on the West Sea to provide energy. Thus, if the West Sea was completely burned away, wouldn't that mean that the energy connection was severed? The heavenly sea formation stretched for over 500 kilometers, and the ocean it covered was incomparably vast. If anyone else said that they could burn away the entire surrounding ocean, they would definitely say that it was wishful thinking. However, Enlil was different. He possessed the power of fire, and he possessed the 7 holy flames. This was indeed the case. The surrounding ocean within a radius of several thousand kilometers had been burned away by the holy flames. Shiming Island was still being supported by the holy flames. It had gone from being submerged in water to being roasted over fire. Now, let me see how you're going to block my punch. Enlil's voice was as resounding as the might of the heavens. His fist erupted with boundless light as it ruthlessly smashed into the formation. Boom! Heaven and earth shattered. The power of the new 5 elements and the power of heaven crushing erupted in a frenzy. The heavenly sea formation was directly flattened into an exaggerated arc. Crack! A crisp crack reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The heavenly sea formation cracked open. Chapter 1992. The formation that had extended for thousands of miles was flattened by the golden fist and then shattered like a bubble. As the blue light screen exploded, it turned into specks of blue light that filled the sky and disappeared into the void. The formation that was imbued with the power of the oceanic god was indeed very terrifying, but it also had a fatal flaw. It was quite clear that Enlil had found this fatal flaw, and he was able to break through this earth-shattering formation with absolute power. The 4 Empyrean gods stared at the shattered formation with dazed expressions, their faces filled with disbelief. What was going on? Enlil really broke through the heavenly sea god's spell formation? The few Empyrean gods all felt that their faces were burning hot. Previously, they had mocked Enlil for not being able to break through the great formation. How long had it been? Enlil had slapped their faces with a slap. Pooh! The heavenly sea god threw up a mouthful of black liquid, and the divine halo above his head began to weaken at a rate discernible to the naked eye. He had suffered a backlash from the spell formation. Heavenly sea god! Bad news. The heavenly sea god has suffered a backlash from the formation. Quick! protect the heavenly sea god. All of the heavenly gods surrounded the heavenly sea god. Heavenly goddess Lan Ya's expression changed drastically. The heavenly sea god is already severely wounded, so he can't fight. Now that he's suffering from the backlash of the spell formation, he really can't continue fighting. It's too dangerous. The heavenly sea god looked at heavenly goddess Lan Ya approvingly. This is what a good subordinate should be like. When the heavenly gods heard this, they all chimed in. We can retreat to the western heavenly gate first. Yes, the strategic weapons of the West Sea's heavenly ship are there, and the light of the heavenly gate is shining there. It's our home ground, and it's the safest place. The Empyrean deities all wanted to retreat. The heavenly sea god gritted his teeth, and a stubborn expression appeared on his face as he shook his head with great difficulty. No, I can't just leave like this. There are still a billion heavenly human tribe eggs here. These are the trump cards of our heavenly gods. I can't let them be destroyed in my hands. When the other Empyrean gods heard this, their hearts ached, and some even had red eyes. But, heavenly sea god, your body. No, heavenly sea god, you can't continue fighting. Let us protect these eggs, we are willing to fight with our lives. The heavenly sea god shook his head. No, you guys are no match for Enlin. Let me. Lan Xiaoni didn't even know what to say at the sight of all the heavenly gods being separated by life and death. It seemed that no matter what they said or how they slandered him, Enlin was still a terrifying enemy in their eyes. They just didn't want to admit it before. She looked up at the white-robed figure in the sky, and her clear and pure eyes were filled with passion and yearning. Her boss Enlin was indeed an omnipotent hero. Heavenly sea god, I'm coming to take your life right now. Enlin's 5 elemental power surged as he activated his body of the war god to the extreme. Enlin, I'll kill you. The heavenly sea god also rose into the air. Fist of the heavenly path. Enlin's fist once again released a world-shattering aura. Universe Sea True Martial Fist. The heavenly sea god's fist was deep blue and boundless. Bam! The two fists collided. Heaven and earth were instantly transformed into a battle of golden and blue energies. This was the first time Enlin had attacked the heavenly sea god. He felt as if his fist had plunged into the deep sea. No matter how much he struggled, he was unable to break free or change the power before him. It was too deep, too vast. It was everywhere, it could nurture everything, and it could also destroy everything. Enlin felt that although his power was very strong and could break through the power of the ocean, he didn't expect that most of it would be like a clay ox entering the ocean. It was as if he was about to be completely engulfed. Enlin's heart jolted. He had wanted to use this opportunity to give the heavenly sea god a good beating, but he didn't expect that he would still be at a disadvantage. Pwah! The heavenly sea god suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood at Enlin. Enlin was astonished. Was my punch really that powerful? The heavenly sea god flew back like a cannonball and landed on Shiming Island. Heavenly sea god! Heavenly sea god! The heavenly gods all cried out in surprise and rushed over to catch the heavenly sea god. They were all touched by the heavenly sea god's stubborn resistance to protect the 1 billion heavenly human eggs. However, even though they were touched, they still carried the heavenly sea god and ran toward the western heavenly gate without any hesitation. In their hearts, the battle and the 1 billion heavenly human eggs didn't matter. The most important thing now was to protect the heavenly sea god. The heavenly sea god was the future. Nothing else mattered. Don't even think about escaping. Enlin hurriedly chased after the heavenly sea god. He clenched his fist, and heaven and earth suddenly transformed into a domain under his control. Heaven's sealing technique. Crack, crack, crack. The heavenly gods all felt as if they were being separated from their original world by some kind of power. Enlin rushed over and stared at the heavenly sea god with a scorching gaze. He really didn't want to let the heavenly sea god escape just like that. Seeing the severely wounded heavenly sea god, A bold idea suddenly appeared in his mind. Killing the heavenly sea god was a little unrealistic. However, if he were to bite off a piece of flesh from its body, Unlin became excited. The heavenly sea god suddenly spat out a mouthful of liquid upon seeing Unlin pouncing toward it. This liquid was like the sharpest sword in the world, and it instantly pierced through Unlin's domain. "Run!" the heavenly mirror god yelled as it erected a mirror. The heavenly gods carried the heavenly sea god and jumped into the mirror without any hesitation. Before Unlin could rush over, the mirror had already disappeared. All the heavenly gods had fled, leaving behind only an empty island. Lan Xiaoni, Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Ling Gu, and the True Element Martial Lord were all dumbstruck astonishment. Unlin had severely wounded the heavenly sea god with a single punch and scared off the 4 heavenly gods. Although they knew that the heavenly sea god had been severely wounded, it was still unheard of for Unlin to be able to scare off the heavenly sea god and the other heavenly gods. Demon Lord Ling Gu's dream was to fight alongside Unlin. However, before he could even attack the heavenly gods, Unlin had already taken care of all the battles. This made him feel despair. Sect leader Unlin's combat prowess is indeed astonishing. Demon Lord Ling Gu sighed with emotion. Since he couldn't fight alongside Unlin, he could only become a spectator. Unlin landed on the island, and his heart ached at the sight of Lan Xiaoni, who was riddled with wounds. Big Boss Unlin. Lan Xiaoni stared at the man before her with teary eyes. Unlin slashed apart the bindings on Lan Xiaoni's body. Lan Xiaoni finally couldn't hold on any longer, and her body went limp, and she was about to collapse to the ground. At this moment, Unlin immediately rushed forward and wrapped his arms around her soft and supple body. He patted her smooth back and consoled her in a gentle voice. "It's all right now. Thank you for your hard work." "Big Boss Unlin, thank you for your hard work as well," Lan Xiaoni said in a gentle voice as she hugged the man before her. "You were the one who suffered the most. You were even injured." Unlin heaved a forlorn sigh. "It's all right, I asked for all of this. It was a ruse to injure myself to gain Unlin's confidence. At least it was all worth it." Lan Xiaoni felt the warmth of Unlin's body, and there was a hint of nostalgia in her voice. We're all great." Unlin smiled. Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Ling Gu, and the True Element Martial Lord were all at a loss as they listened to their conversation. They felt like they couldn't keep up with their conversation. They hurt you, so it's time for them to pay a painful price. A cold smile appeared on Unlin's face as he looked at the 1 billion heavenly human eggs in the distance. Chapter 1993. Unlin looked at the boundless expanse of heavenly human eggs on the island, and he really couldn't imagine just how terrifying the army of eggs would be once they hatched. However, all of this was going to be ended by him. He was going to nip this in the bud. Fire! Unlin waved a hand. Rumble, the great solar sacred fire that was as scorching as the sun was like a tsunami that shook the heavens, sweeping towards the 1 billion eggs on the island. Then, like a carpet, it spread out. Anything that came into contact with those eggs was instantly burned red, or even completely burnt into charcoal. A peculiar charred aroma began to waft through the air. It smells so good. Lan Xiaoni sniffed, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Big Boss Unlin, these eggs smell so good. Unlin had naturally also smelled this fragrant aroma. This was a rich, high-energy aroma. Demon Lord Ling Gu was even more direct. "These eggs have all been roasted, right? With such a dense aura, if we eat all these eggs, will we become even more powerful?" Unlin was shocked. "These are heavenly human eggs. Isn't that even better?" Demon Lord Ling Gu waved his thin arms through the air as his crimson eyes glowed. "Our true demon tribe has also swallowed heavenly human tribe warriors before, and they really didn't taste very good. As for the eggs, they smell quite good after being roasted, and they should also be very delicious." Unlin was a little speechless. "If you want to eat them, then go eat them. Don't get a stomachache." Demon Lord Lingu pounced toward the roasted eggs like a hungry wolf, and his body instantly transformed into a true demon god over 100,000 feet tall. Countless tentacles swept up the eggs in the holy flames before placing them into his cavernous mouth. He chewed on several thousand eggs at a time in an extremely violent manner. Roar. Sect leader Enlin, can you lower the temperature? It's so hot. Demon Lord Lingu wailed with anguish. He discovered that some of his tentacles had been incinerated by the terrifying holy flames before they could even reach the eggs. Enlin shook his head with a smile. I can't. I'm afraid the eggs won't be cooked if the temperature is too low. Demon Lord Lingu thought about it for a moment and realized that this was indeed the case. He forcibly endured the scorching heat and quickly stuffed the heavenly human egg into his mouth. Delicious, delicious. It's so hot, it's scalding. This super powerful being of the true demon tribe was stuck between happiness and pain. It felt like it was playing a game of taking chestnuts from the fire with Enlin. Although the fire was scary, the chestnuts were really delicious. Lan Xiaoni couldn't help but swallow upon seeing this. She cautiously glanced at Enlin. Seeing that Enlin also had no desire to eat the egg, she hesitated for a moment and finally decided not to eat it. The true element martial saint was completely indifferent, calmly looking at the scene in front of him. Only the glutton, Demon Lord Lingu, quickly ate several million heavenly human tribe eggs. His entire body was riddled with wounds, but the energy fluctuations within his body were also increasing at an alarming rate. Enlin's great sun sacred fire quickly spread across the entire Shiming Island, melting the ground and roasting the 1 billion heavenly human eggs. A heavenly human tribe member wouldn't emerge from a cooked egg, right? This was the process of growing from childish to mature. Enlin nodded with a smile as he looked at the cooked eggs in front of him. The paramount heavenly god's plan had finally been foiled by him. Aha! Demon Lord Lingu suddenly howled in anguish. A pained expression appeared on his face, and he collapsed to the ground. His gigantic body struggled madly. Enlin's expression shifted slightly. What's going on? Is he suffering from indigestion? That's possible. Demon Lord Lingu is eating faster and faster. He just ate 100 million eggs. Lan Xiaoni stroked her chin and nodded. Enlin, what's in this guy's stomach? I think the important thing is that he just ate a black-shelled egg, the true element martial saint said. A black-shelled egg? Enlin's expression shifted as he looked at the eggs that were still being roasted in the holy fire. Out of the 900 million heavenly human eggs, there were only 15 black-shelled eggs left. This could be said to be 1 in 100 million. Enlin recalled the scene he had seen at the heavenly human Holy Land, and his expression shifted once again. If I'm not mistaken, these black-shelled eggs are hatched from divine heaven stage heavenly humans. Lan Xiaoni and the true element martial saint's expressions both shifted upon hearing this. Didn't this mean that if the egg hatched, there would be 16 heavenly god-level existences? Just thinking about it made their skin crawl. No wonder the paramount heavenly gods viewed these heavenly humans as their trump cards. Not only did they crush them with numbers, but their quality was also terrifying. So you're saying that Demon Lord Lingu had indigestion because he swallowed a heavenly god? Lan Xiaoni exclaimed in shock. This heavenly god egg isn't still alive, is it? The true element martial saint frowned. Enlin shook his head upon hearing this. I've sensed the life force of these eggs. They're all dead. It really did have indigestion. A heavenly god is so bad *SS. Even after death, the density of energy contained within them is unimaginable. Demon Lord Lingu most likely wouldn't be able to withstand the energy density within these eggs. Enlin waved a hand as he spoke, and the remaining 15 black eggs were swept toward him with holy flames before carefully inspecting them. These black eggs were oval in shape and were about the size of a human. They were clearly pointed at the bottom, but they maintained a peculiar balance as they stood upright on the ground. Unlin didn't have any special feelings toward the other eggs, but he had a special feeling toward these black eggs. He couldn't describe what this feeling was, but he was instinctively attracted to them. Big Boss Unlin, do you want to eat these eggs? Lan Xiaoni's eyes lit up. Unlin shook his head before extending a hand toward one of the black eggs. Whoosh! A peculiar ripple instantly surged through his entire body. Unlin's entire body felt extremely comfortable. Ding dong! Unlin's body shuddered. Holy F***ck, what's that sound? After thinking for a moment, he finally came to his senses. So he had a system. He immediately opened the system in his mind to find that a string of text was flashing incessantly. Detected that host has come into contact with the essential powers of the heavenly God. Now assigning the following special mission. Frowny face, absorb the essential powers of the heavenly gods within all of the heavenly human eggs. Mission success. Perfect and enhance the divine Tao of darkness. Reward. Karma dual tribulation weapon. Mission failure. 2 eggs of host will be erased. Mission time limit, 2 hours. Note: this mission cannot be rejected. Exceeding the time limit will result in failure. Unlin suddenly felt a chill run down his spine upon seeing this mission. This system's mission failure penalty sure was full of malicious intent. The truth was finally revealed to Dabai. The black egg before him was indeed different. It contained the essential powers of the heavenly gods. No wonder heavenly gods were able to use the powers of the divine halos, and 9 of them at once. It turned out that they contained the essential powers of the heavenly gods within their bodies. Unlin didn't know what these essential powers of the heavenly gods would mean to him, but they were definitely extremely beneficial. He took a deep breath. He placed his hand on the heavenly human egg and activated his engulfment spell technique. He didn't need to use any special techniques or tricks. The purest energy within the black egg, as well as the paramount power of the heavenly gods, flowed through his arm and into his heart. Chapter 1994. Unlin could feel a terrifying power surging within his body. A very special power of the heavenly gods even flowed directly into his heart. This power didn't actually flow into his heart. Instead, it flowed into a black dot within his heart. That black dot was actually his divine Tao of darkness. Unlin could feel his divine Tao of darkness becoming more and more powerful. This was a very special feeling, as if his darkness had become purer and more engulfing. Lan Xiaoni let loose a cry of surprise as she watched the egg Unlin was stroking disintegrate at a rate discernible to the naked eye. My God, is this a brand new way of eating eggs? Unlin retorted, don't spout nonsense. I'm not eating the egg. How could I possibly eat the egg? I'm absorbing the egg's energy, do you understand? Lan Xiaoni nodded blankly. Does it taste good? It does. Unlin replied with an honest expression. The black egg's energy and essence all flowed into Unlin's body and were completely absorbed. The only things that turned into powder were the non-nutritious residue on the egg. Soon, the black egg was completely absorbed. Unlin heaved a heavy sigh as his eyes glowed with boundless light. He knew that he had become a lot more powerful. The power of the heavenly gods was strengthening his divine Tao of darkness, and the nourishing essence was strengthening his body. To him, this was absolutely a great fortune. Unlin looked at the remaining 14 black eggs and began to absorb them one by one. With each egg he absorbed, Unlin became a little more powerful. He knew that each black egg represented the essence of a heavenly god. Absorbing a black egg was equivalent to absorbing a heavenly god into his body. As such, the increase in power he received was extremely terrifying. 2, 3, 4, 5 Unlin's aura became more and more terrifying. Even the true element Martial Lord and Lan Xiaoni could sense this, and they couldn't help but stare at the man who was sucking the eggs relentlessly. Demon Lord Ling Gu looked like he was about to die from the pain of eating a single black egg. However, Unlin was completely fine after eating one egg after another. On top of that, he was also quickly becoming more powerful. The two of them were worlds apart. Burp. When Enlin finished the 14th one, he burped. He looked at the last black egg. As long as he ate this one, his mission would be completed. In reality, it didn't really matter whether he completed the mission or not. After all, he had already become more powerful. He was so bad *SS that he felt like he could beat up the severely wounded heavenly sea god. Of course, this was just how he felt. *Chi, Enlin began to devour the last black egg. With a shake of his arms, he had become stronger again. "Come on, system, give me a reward," Enlin shouted in his heart. However, everything was so quiet. Enlin noticed that the system didn't ding-dong. He looked at the system in shock and found that the quest was incomplete. This? Enlin's eyes widened, and his divine sense burst forth to scan the hundreds of millions of heavenly human eggs on the island. Indeed, there were no more black eggs. He had already completed the quest and absorbed all the black eggs. What's going on? Why isn't the mission completed yet? Could it be that the system is retarded? Enlin suddenly panicked. The quest reward wasn't that important. However, if he failed the mission, the 2 eggs on his body would be erased. This was something that he definitely couldn't bear. Lan Xiaoni turned to Enlin with a curious expression. "What's wrong, Big Boss Enlin? What happened? Where are my eggs? Where are my eggs?" Enlin's face was drenched in cold sweat as he spoke in a panicked voice. The time limit for the mission was 2 hours, and he didn't have much time left. If he failed the mission, your eggs? Lan Xiaoni blinked her limpid eyes, and she casually glanced down at Enlin's crotch as a deep blush appeared on her face. "Didn't you say that you'll replenish whatever you eat? That can't be right. Did you eat all your eggs? What did you say?" Enlin stared at Lan Xiaoni with a blank expression before suddenly realizing what Lan Xiaoni was implying, and he almost threw up a mouthful of blood. "I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the black eggs." However, it appeared that Lan Xiaoni was right. If things continued like this, he really was going to eat all of his eggs until he ran out of eggs. "Oh, so that's not what you're talking about." Lan Xiaoni's blush deepened, and she was so ashamed that she almost wanted to crawl into the ocean. It was over. When did she become so filthy? What was she going to do if Big Boss Enlin found out about this? Was her reputation as the West Sea Alliance leader going to crumble in front of Big Boss Enlin? Enlin didn't have the time to worry about Lan Xiaoni. He was still looking for eggs. "Didn't you eat all the black eggs?" The true element martial lord couldn't help but ask. If there really are other eggs, could it be that the heavenly sea god snuck them away? Enlin's body shuddered. If the heavenly sea god really did take them away, then wouldn't the mission be hellish? He had thought that this was a free mission, but it turned out to be a hellish mission? No. I have to calm down. The heavenly sea god had said that he was going to destroy all of the eggs. He didn't like disobedient heavenly human tribe cultivators, so it was extremely unlikely that he would keep the eggs with him. He must have missed something with this in mind. Enlin suddenly turned toward Demon Lord Linggu, who was still struggling on the ground. "It's been so long, why is Demon Lord Linggu still rolling around on the ground? Is he still suffering from indigestion?" Enlin's lips twitched. Could it be Demon Lord Linggu felt like he was about to die? The energy within his body felt like it was about to explode. The amount of energy he absorbed was far less than the amount of energy released by the eggs in his body, and the energy he absorbed was severely out of balance. As such, his body would collapse and he would die. Right at this moment, a white-robed figure appeared before him. Sect Leader Enlin. Demon Lord Linggu's expression faltered slightly at the sight of the man flying toward him. "Mr. Linggu, I'm here to help you." Enlin looked at him with an extremely urgent expression, as if he couldn't afford to waste even a single second. Demon Lord Linggu's heart was filled with warmth. Tears welled up in his eyes upon seeing Sect Leader Enlin, whom he revered immensely, being so concerned for him. Whoosh! Demon Lord Ling Gu's massive body was flung into the sky by Enlin. Enlin leaped behind Demon Lord Ling Gu with his fists clenched tightly. Wait. Sect leader Enlin, could it be that you're trying to? Demon Lord Ling Gu's expression shifted drastically as he recalled the terrifying fist Enlin had unleashed. As if to confirm his suspicions, Enlin's fist began to glow with a golden light. No. Wait. I'll do it myself. Demon Lord Ling Gu was completely petrified, and he yelled in a loud voice. Enlin's fist was powerful enough to make the heavenly sea god vomit blood. If it landed on his body, he would definitely die. Enlin acted as if he didn't hear him, and his fist crashed into Demon Lord Ling Gu's back. Mr. Ling Gu, I'm here to save you. Mountain quaking fist. Boom. His fist was like 1,000,000,000,000 tons of force, and it instantly caved in Demon Lord Ling Gu's back. Demon Lord Ling Gu was struck by an excruciating pain as his stomach churned. A sense of impending death surged through his entire body, and he was on the verge of tears. A large pile of undigested eggs, mixed with green stomach acid, was spat out like a waterfall, big and small pearls falling onto a jade plate. This was an extremely spectacular scene. Lan Xiaoni's eyes widened, and she silently pinched her nose. Found it! Enlin's eyes lit up, and he waved a hand, upon which a black egg flew toward him. The eggs hadn't been digested yet, so he had saved them. Chapter 1995. Enlin picked up the black egg and smiled at the pained demon Lord Ling Gu. Fellow cultivator Ling Gu, I've successfully removed the source of your pain. There's no need to thank me. Demon Lord Ling Gu clutched his back as tears streamed down his face from the pain. He had removed the source of pain from the black egg, but his fist had become the new source of pain. Enlin ignored Demon Lord Ling Gu. At this moment, the egg was the most valuable thing for him to protect. He washed the black egg with water, and even used the divine liquid of creation cultivation method to wash the egg completely clean. Only then did he touch the shell of the egg and absorb it to his heart's content. It didn't take long for Enlin to completely absorb the black egg. His power had increased once again. Ding dong! The system finally chimed in. Congratulations, host, on mission completion. Mission completion reward is now bestowed. Enlin was instantly very excited. Everything produced by the system was definitely of the highest quality. This could be seen from the frying pan and the black brick. Now, the system was giving him a karmic dual tribulation weapon. Just from the name alone, one could tell that this was an extremely badass weapon. A dazzling light began to flash. The weapon of Enlin's dreams began to appear in his hands. His pupils began to contract slowly, and finally, his eyes widened. His face was full of shock and disbelief, and even the hand holding the weapon began to tremble. There was only one thought echoing in his mind. Holy F***CK. What the F***CK is this thing? There was a Y-shaped black slingshot in his hand. On the two ends of the slingshot, there were two egg-like balls, one white and one red, connected by thin energy threads. So this was the karmic dual tribulation weapon? There was no divine light, no phenomenon, no exquisite workmanship, there was nothing. It felt like this was a shoddy toy. It was even more shoddy than the frying pan and the black brick. Enlin swung the Y-shaped slingshot in his hand, and the two egg-shaped balls on both ends of the slingshot shook as well. This gave Enlin a strange feeling. He kept feeling that this thing looked like something when he placed the Y-shaped slingshot horizontally, looked at the pitch-black slingshot, and then flicked the two eggs under the slingshot. He finally knew what this thing looked like. F***CK. Enlin couldn't help but curse. A deep blush appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face. Big Boss Enlin, what is that thing? It looks so weird, Enlin's chest tightened. Looking at this girl's expression, she must have also discovered the uniqueness of this weapon. You're still pretending not to know? Your expression has already betrayed you. This thing is called the Karma Dual Calamity Weapon. Enlin said with a solemn expression. What kind of name is that? Lan Xiaoni stared at Enlin with shock in her eyes, as if to say that he was lying to her. Let alone Lan Xiaoni, even Enlin himself didn't believe that this thing could have such a name. He felt like calling it the Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong Cannon was a more accurate description. Everything produced by the system had to be of the highest quality. This was Enlin's undying belief. He felt like even though this thing was a little ugly, it was definitely going to be quite useful. After all, this was a reward for sacrificing 16 heavenly gods to the heavens. But how was he supposed to use it? There were no instructions here. Enlin thought about it for a moment before a white light flashed through his eyes, and he activated his divine inspection technique. Karma Dual Calamity Weapon. Paramount Karma Weapon. The red egg is the leftover egg tribulation, while the white egg is the wronged egg tribulation. Strike the enemy's body with the wronged egg tribulation first, then strike the enemy's body with the leftover egg tribulation within 1 minute to trigger the karma tribulation of doom, which will deal a lethal blow to the enemy. Enlin, what was going on with this explanation that seemed like a game? Wronged egg tribulation? Leftover egg tribulation? Don't think I haven't had my fair share of bad blood on Earth. Enlin was on the verge of vomiting. Was this thing really useful? He had absolute faith in the system's products, but he was starting to have doubts now. He had to find something to test its power on, but there were no enemies here. What if his little friend was doom? He was about to die from frustration. So be it, I'll put it away for now. Enlin stowed this strange object into his storage ring. Lan Xiaoni turned toward him with a curious expression. Big Boss Enlin, what's wrong? Your expression doesn't look quite right. My balls are hurting, Enlin replied. Demon Lord Ling Gu's anguished cries subsided, and he finally caught his breath. He crawled up from the ground and expressed his gratitude to Enlin before continuing to eat his eggs. In no time, all 1 billion eggs had been devoured by Demon Lord Ling Gu. His 6-pack abdomen had become a single pack, and it was as if he had been pregnant for many years. This was even after the eggs had been compressed into an extremely concentrated form of energy. If they hadn't been compressed, his body would have exploded from the eggs. Now, it's time to put an end to this operation. Enlin leaped into the air, and a ring appeared behind him. At the same time, scorching holy flames burst forth from his fists. His arms bulged crimson, and a terrifying amount of energy accumulated. 5 elemental body, 8 times flame Qilin arms. Boom! The flaming fist fell from the sky like a meteorite and crashed heavily into Shiming Island. The terrifying power of the fist smashed the gigantic island, which spanned over 1,000 kilometers, into pieces. Then, it was incinerated into nothingness by the boundless flames. The seawater began to churn and swallow the last remnants of the island. From now on, the West Sea would forever have one less island. Enlin left with Lan Xiaoni, Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Ling Gu, and the True Element Martial Lord. At the eastern heavenly gate, within a sea of light, a small lake beside the heavenly light goddess began to shimmer. She walked to the side of the small lake, and a smile appeared on her face. See, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly contact us? The heavenly earth god's voice also traveled over. See, is there some good news for you to contact us at the same time? Could it be that the 1 billion heavenly human tribe members have already hatched? Is the human race's most desperate moment finally coming? The heavenly light goddess also spoke. There are only 10 million heavenly human tribe members left on the Eastern Front. We're just waiting for your 1 billion heavenly human tribe members to join the battle. Then, we'll launch a decisive battle. Light. Earth. The heavenly sea god suddenly choked with sobs. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It's all my fault. A sense of foreboding welled up in the hearts of the heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god. What happened? The heavenly light goddess asked. Speak slowly, the heavenly earth god said in a low voice. The heavenly sea god's voice traveled over. The 1 billion heavenly human eggs are gone. Boom. The heavenly sea god's voice was like a clap of thunder exploding beside the heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god's ears. Both of them fell silent. Do you know what you're saying? See. The heavenly light goddess's words were imbued with unimaginable rage. The surrounding sea of light became extremely dazzling, as if it could explode at any moment. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I was careless and allowed Enlin to take advantage of me. That's right. Those 1 billion heavenly human eggs were all destroyed by Enlin. Chapter 1996. The heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god were both dumbstruck. Enlin? It was Enlin again? F***ck. This Enlin. Does he really think we can't deal with him? The heavenly earth god was enraged, and his voice became extremely gloomy. Our trump card is gone, just like that. The heavenly light goddess was still reeling from the blow she had just received. She had expended 100 million heavenly human tribe united army to reduce the kingdom of the 9 states united army to only 10 million. She had wanted to exhaust more of the kingdom of the 9 states united army so that the 1 billion heavenly human tribe united army could deal a fatal blow to the human race, but now, she was told that the 1 billion heavenly human tribe united army was gone? The heavenly sea god was also grief-stricken, and he recounted everything that had happened to him, including how he had tried to tamper with Lan Xiaoni's memories in order to better control her power of water, as well as how Enlin had miraculously found him and how he had cleverly broken through his formation. The heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god were both shocked to hear this. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? However, it was so real that they couldn't refute it. The heavenly sea god wept as he begged the heavenly earth god and the heavenly light goddess to punish him severely. Otherwise, he would feel very guilty. The two heavenly gods were both furious and resentful toward the heavenly sea god. Punish him? He looked like he was about to King die. If they punished him, would they have to kill him? They hated the heavenly sea god for dropping the ball at such a crucial moment. Perhaps it was because they were too angry that they didn't even have the energy to curse at him. We'll talk about this later. Protect the western heavenly gate first. The heavenly light goddess instructed. The heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god cut off their communication. Was this the end? No, this was only the beginning. On this day, extremely terrifying light suddenly erupted in the eastern region of the Tai Chu continent. It was as if a series of extreme explosions were taking place. Near the Tai Chu continent's white nectar sea, the earth was trembling violently as terrifying energy erupted forth. It was as if a primordial ferocious beast were roaring again and again, threatening to completely shatter the earth and shatter it. This gave the kingdom of the 9 states united army quite a fright. All of them were on their highest alert and prepared for battle. However, this situation only lasted for 2 hours before it faded away. The heavenly human tribe didn't attack, and the paramount heavenly gods didn't pounce toward him. Everything returned to normal. Only the allied army looked at each other in bewilderment. They had no idea what was going on. Light, the ocean is not my territory. Do you know what's going on? The heavenly earth god's voice suddenly sounded. The heavenly light goddess spoke in a dejected voice. I've already used my light techniques to deduce over 10,000 times. Although it's very coincidental, I didn't miss anything. Lan Xiaoni really was putting up a desperate struggle. The heavenly sea god really was trying to tamper with her memories, and Enlin's divination techniques were simply too powerful, which was why the heavenly sea god was discovered. Furthermore, the heavenly sea god fought Enlin to the death in the end. For the heavenly sea god, it has also encountered an extremely dangerous and frustrating situation. The heavenly sea god's injuries have really worsened. Even though paramount heavenly gods weren't omnipotent and omniscient, they were still able to gather a lot of information if they focused their power on a particular event. The heavenly earth god heaved a forlorn sigh upon hearing this. Why are we so unlucky? Could it be that the heavenly Tao is robbing us of our fortune? We forcefully invaded the Tai Chu continent to exterminate all living beings, which is an act of defiance of the heavens. It's not impossible that the heavenly Tao is robbing us of our fortune. The heavenly light goddess heaved a forlorn sigh. Then what do we do now? The heavenly earth god was also quite dejected. He had initially planned to use the heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion to crush the humans into despair. But now, he was the one who had tasted despair. Unlin. That D***Mned Unlin. The heavenly earth god felt like his face was burning with embarrassment. Even his calm and tranquil heart was beginning to waver from Unlin's actions. We still have one more trump card, but if we use it now, our chances of success won't be as high as before. However, we have no choice but to make this choice. The heavenly light goddess' voice was tinged with a hint of exasperation and concern. The heavenly earth god felt a little more confident at the mention of this trump card. Let's find a good day to launch the final battle. At the center of the white nectar sea. At the pinnacle of the heavenly divine tree. The peerlessly beautiful heavenly life goddess and the heavenly heaven god stood on a tree branch in silence. They had also heard the news from the heavenly sea god, and their emotions were extremely complex. You. The heavenly life goddess' lips parted slightly. Have you figured anything out? Everything the heavenly sea god said is true. Furthermore, even in the final moments, Unlin was still trying to kill the heavenly sea god with everything he had. The heavenly heaven god's deductions were more in-depth than the heavenly light goddesses, but the conclusion he had reached was still the same. This is going to be quite troublesome. The heavenly life goddess' brows furrowed slightly. Not only is this a heavy blow to light and earth, but it's also going to have a very heavy impact on our plan. We're reaping what we sow, right? The heavenly heaven god spoke in an indifferent voice. A wry smile appeared on the heavenly life goddess' face. We shouldn't have given that heavenly poison god to Unlin. That's right, it was exactly because they had given Unlin the heavenly poison god that Unlin had become so powerful. If Unlin's divine body hadn't reached the phenomenal success stage, how would he have been able to destroy all of the 1 billion heavenly human eggs? Just as all of the paramount heavenly gods were feeling extremely distressed. The immortal land above water was in an uproar. It's giving birth. Demon Lord Lingu is giving birth. My God, he's screaming so loudly. Hang in there. Hang in there. All of the West Sea United Army members stared at Demon Lord Lingu with fervent expressions, and some of them were even yelling at the top of their lungs. Ah! The true demon's massive body, over 100,000 feet in size, thrashed about in the ocean, and its bulging stomach grew larger and larger, as if something were about to come out. All of the West Sea Alliance members knew that not only had Unlin saved their alliance leader Lan, but he had also foiled the paramount heavenly god's earth-shattering plan, so they were all extremely excited. They naturally knew that Demon Lord Lingu had swallowed all of the 1 billion eggs. 1 billion eggs. Each egg was as tall as a person. What kind of concept would it be to swallow 1 billion eggs into one's stomach? No one had even tried to swallow that many eggs, let alone such a huge egg. Demon Lord Lingu's heroic feat earned him the title of Egg Eater Demon Lord. To be able to eat 1 billion celestial eggs at once, let me ask you, are you afraid? Some of the West Sea Alliance members cheered him on, while others cheered him on. Finally, amid Demon Lord Lingu's blood-curdling roar, ah! Boom! A resounding boom erupted. It's broken! It's broken! It's finally out! The Egg-Eater Demon Lord has made a breakthrough. The power of the divine Tao began to spread throughout heaven and earth. Phenomena began to appear. On this day, Demon Lord Lingu progressed to the Tao integration pinnacle stage after eating an egg. Chapter 1997. Tens of millions of members of the West Sea Alliance cheered in unison. They were all genuinely happy and happy. Demon Lord Ling Gu's breakthrough from the Tao Integration Intermediate Stage to the Tao Integration Final Stage meant that the West Sea Alliance's top-notch combat prowess had risen to a whole new level. If he continued to cultivate his heaven-crushing techniques, he might even possess the combat prowess of a heavenly disciple candidate. In that case, the West Sea Alliance would be even more secure. Lin looked at the true demon divine Tao concept scroll in the sky and was not surprised at all. There were a total of 1 billion heavenly human eggs, and the energy contained within them was comparable to the energy of several dozen Tao integration stage super mighty figures. If Demon Lord Ling Gu could completely absorb the essence of these eggs, he would be able to break through to the God of Creation stage as long as he had the aptitude to do so. Of course, most super mighty figures didn't have the aptitude to do so. Not taking into account other things, the Celestial Arch had been the most powerful being in the Kingdom of the Nine States for tens of thousands of years, yet he was still stuck at the Tao Integration Pinnacle stage for so many years. In terms of accumulated energy, he definitely had enough. He had cultivated to the point where he couldn't improve in any aspect, and he was only lacking a little enlightenment. However, just this little bit of enlightenment was more important than the energy essence of several hundred Tao integration stage super mighty figures. Howl! A domineering roar reverberated throughout heaven and earth. Demon Lord Ling Gu had successfully broken through to the Tao integration final stage, and his aura had skyrocketed to an extremely terrifying level. Furthermore, it was still increasing. He was still absorbing the energy essence of the heavenly human eggs in his stomach, and his body was becoming more and more powerful. Finally, after reaching the pinnacle of the Tao integration pinnacle stage, his bulging stomach finally deflated, and his six-pack reappeared on his body. Ah! So powerful! Is this the feeling of invincibility? Demon Lord Ling Gu could feel that his body had become extremely powerful, and he was no longer afraid of any enemies. He clenched his fists, and demonic power surged within his body. His blood vessels bulged, and a red glow flickered within them. It was as if they were undergoing a fusion reaction as his arms expanded. A single punch from him was enough to unleash a destructive power that was far greater than that of a hydrogen bomb. Demon Lord Ling Gu could feel the invincible power in his body, and he felt that he could step on the heavens and look down on everyone. He looked at Lin not far away and said with a burning gaze, "Sect Leader Lin, give me a punch. I want to test my strength." The white-robed man who he once worshipped and could only look up to from afar, the Demon Lord now felt that he had the right to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Lin blinked. All right, although he did not understand such an unreasonable request, he would naturally satisfy it. Lin punched out. Demon Venerable Ling Gu laughed heartily as he exchanged a punch with Lin. Rumble! The collision of the two fists caused the world to fall silent. A blood-curdling scream was heard. Demon Venerable Ling Gu's massive body was blasted several hundred kilometers away by the terrifying power, and he turned into a black dot in front of everyone's eyes. The power of the five elements even tore his arm apart violently. Lin had purposely held back, so it didn't spread to his entire body. All of the living beings present were at a loss for words at the sight of Demon Venerable Ling Gu being insta-killed. Lan Xiaoni crossed her arms over her chest with a resigned expression on her face. This B** starred is getting cocky. It asked Big Boss Lin to bash it. It's a classic example of someone who doesn't know how to become more powerful. All of the West Sea Alliance members knew that Demon Venerable Ling Gu was extremely powerful, but Lin's punch once again made them feel the invincibility of their backer. They were extremely astonished, but they were also extremely excited. Demon Venerable Ling Gu was the most astonished of all. After absorbing so much energy essence from the heavenly human egg, he was already feeling invincible. However, Lin's punch had forced him back to his egg form. That's right, he felt like he was a heavenly human egg in the face of Lin. A heavenly human egg that could be roasted and eaten by anyone. Demon Venerable Ling Gu's massive body crashed into the ocean, creating a massive tsunami. He looked up into the sky as he clutched his bloody severed arm, and he began to wonder if his evolution was fake. Just how powerful was sect leader Enlin, as expected of the light that he had been pursuing for his entire life? Demon Venerable Ling Gu quickly came to a realization. He crawled up from the ground and expressed his admiration and gratitude toward Enlin once again. If it weren't for Enlin, he wouldn't have been able to obtain such a massive opportunity and progress to the Tao integration pinnacle stage. It was said that if one followed a being blessed with great fortune, they would also become blessed with great fortune. This was indeed true. Demon Venerable Ling Gu became even more determined to follow Enlin. Of course, the most important thing right now was to protect the West Sea. Enlin would only take him along if he did his best to protect the West Sea. At this moment, at the eastern heavenly gate, a male heavenly god with a divine symbol saber on his back rubbed his palms together as he spoke to the sea of light before him. Heavenly Light Goddess, the 10 million strong heavenly human tribe army has already been assembled. When are we going to start our suicidal attack? As soon as his voice fell, the few Empyrean gods noticed that the sea of light in front of them had inexplicably trembled. Cancel the plan. The heavenly light goddess's cold voice traveled over. Hey, hey, hey! Why? A female heavenly god with a huge pink fan in her hand widened her eyes in confusion. Didn't you say that the 3 paramount heavenly gods were going to join forces and launch an earth-shattering plan? Didn't you say that there would be a massive army that would stun the entire world? That's right, that's right. The other heavenly gods also chimed in as they looked toward the sea of light with curiosity. The flowing sea of light faltered again. Then, it began to tremble slightly. How was she supposed to explain this? Her earth-shattering plan had been foiled? No, she couldn't tell anyone. If she told anyone, wouldn't that mean that the 3 paramount heavenly gods would be slapped in the face? We'll discuss this later. The heavenly light goddess remained silent. However, the heavenly light goddess couldn't do whatever she wanted in this world. She didn't want to tell anyone as she didn't want the 3 paramount heavenly gods to be slapped in the face. However, someone else would. Enlin had the West Sea Alliance spread the news of his exploits in a low-key manner. He even sent a series of high-definition photographic images taken by the True Element Martial Lord to various newspapers and magazines. This included information about the egg-eating demon lord's breakthrough due to eating an egg. Thus, Enlin's name dominated the headlines again. Invincible God of War, Sect Leader Enlin, foils the paramount heavenly god's earth-shattering plot. The world-destroying threat has been snuffed out in the cradle. The human god of war has astonished the world and annihilated 1 billion enemies with the flick of a finger. He defeated the heavenly sea god with a single punch. He stomped the earth with 1 foot and grasped the light in his hand. Demon Lord Ling Gu and sect leader Enlin went on a secret trip. Why is he behaving like a pregnant woman after 1 day? Honestly speaking, how many paramount heavenly gods can Enlin stand against with his current strength? One earth-shattering headline after another spread throughout the entire Tai Chu continent. Countless living beings were once again shocked and ecstatic. It seemed like no one in this world could stop the footsteps of this human god of war. That's right, not only was Enlin the war god of the celestial court, but he was also revered as the war god of the entire human race. Wherever he went, there would be a bunch of fanboys and girls staring at him with scorching eyes. Enlin actually wanted to keep a low profile, but his power didn't allow him to do so. He had no choice but to reduce the number of times he went out. After all, it was quite unpleasant to be pounced on by a bunch of girls who had lost all sense of reason. A boy like him had to be very careful when he went out. After doing all this, Enlin hurried back to Yutong City. Chapter 1998. Lan Xiaoni personally bade farewell to Enlin. She had initially wanted to spend a few more days with Enlin. After all, this was a rare opportunity, but Enlin told her that there was someone waiting for him in that city, and he had to go back as soon as possible. The mermaid princess pouted with a hint of displeasure and disappointment in her heart. Was she not pretty enough, or was the seafood she cooked not good enough? Why was he so eager to go back? She was a little unhappy, but she still wrapped her arms around Enlin's arm and told him to come visit the West Sea Alliance again with a smile on her face. After bidding farewell to Enlin, Lan Xiaoni gave herself a pep talk before throwing herself back into the fight against the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army. She still had to work hard. On the eastern front of the Kingdom of the Nine States, at Chen Shi City, the Celestial Dharch was actually quite perplexed by the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army's frenzied attack a few days ago. They had won a few major victories, but he wasn't elated at all. Instead, his heart was filled with unease and confusion. Finally, when Enlin incinerated 1 billion heavenly human eggs, the truth was revealed to be Dubai. So this was what the paramount heavenly gods were plotting. They were going to make the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army lower their guard first, and when their numbers dwindled further, the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army of 1 billion would appear. If this were to happen, it would be an extremely depressing situation. At the very least, it would be a very heavy blow to the morale of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. However, this earth-shattering plot had been foiled by Enlin, and the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army on the Eastern Front were the real F***ers. The Heavenly Human Tribe United Army on the Eastern Front was gone, and they only had 10 million soldiers left, but they had to fight the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, which consisted of 50 to 60 million soldiers. The headlines of the Tai Chu continent didn't mention this, but all of the mighty figures were well aware of how important this was. It could be said that Enlin had pulled the Tai Chu continent back from the brink of disaster again. He was having a good time in Yutong City just a few days ago, but in the blink of an eye, he was able to foil a paramount heavenly god scheme and burn 1 billion heavenly human eggs. Is this Enlin a god? Emperor Ziwei's expression was filled with shock. Ha ha! Sect leader Enlin really is a man who can't be judged by normal standards. The Celestial Dharch couldn't help but burst into laughter. He makes the paramount heavenly gods suffer every single time. These heavenly gods must hate him to death, right? Emperor Chang Xing stroked his beard and heaved a forlorn sigh. Just the thought of being hated by more than 3 paramount heavenly gods makes me feel like my legs are about to give out from under me. Only sect leader Enlin has the right to be hated by so many powerful beings. Although he said that, the smile on his face became brighter and brighter. The more the enemy hated and displeased them, the happier they would be. There was nothing more delightful than building one's happiness on the pain and suffering of one's enemies. The 4 of them were the happiest of all. They were already bragging about Master Enlin's invincibility and greatness throughout the entire Eastern Front. In particular, Xiao Tu had peed in the direction of the Eastern Front and used his urine to carve out a line in the ground. He had also declared that no matter how many Heavenly Human Tribe United Army soldiers crossed this line, he would be able to take on all of them on his own. He wouldn't back down even against heavenly gods. That's right, Xiao Tu was alive again. He was the one who mocked and ridiculed his enemies the most among the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. He had even placed a few million turtle eggs in front of the line and called them all heavenly human eggs. He then laughed heartily in the eastern sky while feasting on the eggs. The Celestial Dharch and the others were all shocked to see this, and they all respected Xiao Tu for being a brave warrior. Just as Xiao Tu was about to go berserk, Enlin returned to Yutong City. He was greeted by Su Xiaolan. A smile immediately appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Who would have thought that you would do so many earth-shattering things on your trip to the West Sea? That was a piece of cake. Enlin made his way over to Su Xiaolan and gave her a big hug. Su Xiaolan was a little embarrassed. She was still quite frail and old, and she was a little unaccustomed to being hugged so passionately by Enlin. Enlin didn't care about that. He could sense her aura, and her body temperature was very good. Enlin, I made a few new dishes for you. Do you want to try them? Xiaolan's eyes crinkled into a smile as she asked in a gentle voice. Sure. Enlin nodded with a smile before snatching Su Xiaolan's mask away at lightning speed. What are you doing, Enlin? Give me back my mask. I don't want you to see me like this. Su Xiaolan immediately panicked, and she tried to snatch the mask back. But I want to see you like this, but this disgusting mask is blocking my view. Enlin immediately ran away as he spoke to Su Xiaolan. What's so good about my old and decrepit appearance? Su Xiaolan asked. Your smile. Enlin turned to look into Su Xiaolan's eyes with a serious expression. He was only able to see Su Xiaolan's smile through the 2 holes in the mask, and for some reason, he was very displeased by this. Su Xiaolan's footsteps faltered, and tears welled up in her eyes. Enlin was quite sympathetic toward her, and he hurriedly made his way over to her. All right, I'll give you back your mask. Don't be angry. Su Xiaolan took the mask, but she didn't do anything else. Enlin blinked and looked at Su Xiaolan in confusion. Really? You really don't mind if I don't wear the mask? Su Xiaolan asked softly with her head lowered. Enlin faltered slightly as he looked at the woman before him. He looked into her eyes, her wrinkled nose, and her wrinkled mouth before a smile appeared on his face. Of course I don't mind. I can see you more clearly without the mask on. That's even better. The mask in Su Xiaolan's hand suddenly burst into flames. She held the burning mask in her hand, but she raised her head, and a smile bloomed on her face, outlining the wrinkles on her face. Then, in the future, I won't wear a mask anymore. Su Xiaolan had thought things through. If the person she cared about the most didn't mind her appearance, then there was no point in her wearing the mask. She wouldn't be able to see what she looked like anyway. Enlin was extremely elated, and he gave Su Xiaolan a big hug before leading her to the dining table. Come on, Su Xiaolan. Let's taste your new dish. The 2 of them began to eat happily. On the western border of the Tai Chu continent, in the sky realm, the heavenly sea god looked at the newspaper with a constipated expression, and he almost vomited blood as he read the headlines. What kind of news was this? What kind of commentary was this? Were these people all stupid C***NTS? Enlin defeated the heavenly sea god with a single punch. The heavenly sea god, or the weakest paramount heavenly god? And this was the worst of all. The heavenly sea god was the last to appear, and it was suspected that the heavenly Tao was having a hard time giving birth, which was why he was so weak. Ah! These heartless media outlets. Do they even have a conscience? I'm going to kill them all in the next battle. That's right. Kill them all. The heavenly sea god's enraged roar reverberated throughout the western heavenly gate. Chapter 1999. The news of Enlin destroying the 1 billion heavenly human eggs was still brewing. The impact it caused was extremely far-reaching. It could be said that it had truly changed the direction of the battle. Some tribes were celebrating, while some of the subordinate tribes of the heavenly human tribe united army were grief-stricken. Their morale had plummeted to an all-time low, and even their faith was wavering. All of the paramount figures of the Tai Chu continent were also paying close attention to this event. A faint smile appeared on Yua's face as she quickly browsed through the latest news reports. White Spirit Snake was jumping with joy beside her, while Black Spirit Snake's eyes widened with incredulity. Within the land of eternal light. Do you see that? He's your third heavenly disciple. He has already done something earth-shattering and foiled the enemy's plan. Now it's our turn. Cyril of the Heaven-Crushing Sect announced in a clear voice, I hereby announce the official commencement of the Heaven-Crushing Plan. Within the Heaven-Crushing Glazed Palace, all of the powerful beings raised their hands high into the air with scorching battle intent in their eyes. Heaven-Crushing! Heaven-Crushing! Heaven crushing! A series of cries pierced through the clouds and into the heavens. There were several hundred fanatical members of the heaven-crushing sect, all of whom were returned to void stage mighty figures at the very least. The battling Buddha, Yun Menjing, and Michael, the three heavenly disciple candidates, also appeared. The fourth heavenly disciple, the ancient dragon empress, was also present. All of the most powerful beings of the heaven-crushing sect were present, and they were about to welcome a grand moment. Cyril wore a crimson Taoist robe, and he slowly made his way toward the vortex at the center of the palace with an unprecedentedly solemn expression as he tossed a black ball into the vortex. The handsome Chen Chen also chanted a spell and tossed the white ball in his hand into the vortex. The black ball and the white ball disappeared into the chaotic vortex at the same time. Everything fell silent. All of the powerful beings looked on at the scenes unfolding before their eyes, not daring to say anything. Soon, changes began to take place. Black veined patterns began to appear on the ground around the heaven-crushing glazed palace, intertwining with one another before extending into the distance to form a complex pattern. The black patterns continued to extend, mysterious and boundless. The area it covered soon covered the entire Purple Star ruins, and it didn't stop there. Instead, it continued to spread outward, reaching the Kingdom of the Nine States, the Opposite Shore Realm, the East Sea, the Southern Heavenly Wing Nation, the North Tsang Mountain Realm, and even the White Nectar Sea. In the end, it continued eastward until it reached the West Sea. Black-veined patterns appeared over the entire Tai Chu continent. Billions of living beings were astonished. They couldn't imagine what it was. If this thing was hostile toward them, would it instantly massacre the entire Tai Chu continent? The most panicked of all were the heavenly human tribe living beings. A heaven pioneer stage great general unleashed a ferocious slap at the black-veined patterns, reducing the ground within a radius of over 50 kilometers to dust. Then, he was shocked to find that the black lines had already sunk deep into the ground. Even though the ground had sunk a few hundred meters into the ground, the lines inside were still exactly the same, without any change. What is this thing? The heavenly human tribe great general's eyes widened in horror, and he immediately reported this matter to the heavenly god. The heavenly gods didn't say anything, but the silence created an oppressive atmosphere. At this moment, the aura of a formation began to spread throughout the entire continent. That's right, this was a formation. A formation that had never been seen before. A formation that enshrouded the entire Tai Chu continent. The name of this formation was Heaven-Crushing Formation. The name of this formation represented everything. This was the formation used by the Heaven-Crushing sect to crush the heavens. The setting sun descended upon the land that was covered in veined patterns, painting the entire sky with a golden line. Below the golden line was a vast and boundless land, while above the golden line were stars that had just begun to appear in the night sky. The earth was connected to the heavens, and yin and yang were separated by a single line. At a certain special moment, the boundary between reality and illusion seemed to blur, as did the entire space and time. This was a peculiar cycle of reincarnation between heaven and earth. During this unique cycle, the black formation on the earth seemed to be extending into the heavens. Boom, boom, boom. Black energy erupted from the 999 nodes of the formation at the same time into the heavens. At the same time, a pillar of white light with a diameter of over 10,000 meters suddenly shot down from the ceiling of the heaven-crushing glazed palace. The extremely rich heaven-crushing true intent seemed to be threatening to pulverize the entire heavens. All the heaven-crushing sect members of the heaven-crushing glazed palace looked up at the countless black cracks in the sky with indescribable excitement on their faces. The heaven-crushing sect plan had officially begun. Next, it was time for them to create miracles. A smile appeared on Cyril's face as he looked at all of the powerful beings present. We're about to face the ferocious attacks of the heavenly human tribe and the heavenly gods. Are you all willing to join me in battle to slay the heavenly human tribe and destroy this wrong heavenly Tao? I'm willing. Forward forever. Never regret it. All the heaven-crushing sect members spoke with raging battle intent. The heaven-crushing sect's actions had alerted countless living beings on the Tai Chu continent. Although they did not understand formations, the true meaning of "I want to defy the heavens, I want to break the heavens, I want to destroy the heavens, I want to destroy the heavens," was something that even a 3-year-old child could feel. That's right, the entire Tai Chu continent knew that the heaven-crushing sect was about to do something big. All of the powerful beings turned their eyes toward what had once been the most glorious land of civilization on the Tai Chu continent, which was now a barren wasteland. This was the headquarters of the heaven-crushing sect. Is Cyril finally going to make a move? I'm really worried about him. On the contrary, I quite like Chen Chen. An old man with a benevolent face and a long white beard shook his head and sighed. He had a sage-like demeanor as he stroked his beard. Master, why do I feel like Enlin is more reliable? Beside the old man, a fat man with a body like a ball interrupted with a simple and honest voice. As he spoke, he didn't forget to stuff pills into his mouth, making crunching sounds like he was chewing on jelly beans. Enlin is indeed more suitable, but he has to be willing. Besides, Enlin has many choices, so he doesn't have to crush the heavens. The elderly man looked toward the west with a meaningful expression. Oh. The fat man nodded. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The elderly man looked up at the white clouds in the sky. He was originally a mighty man, but the more he listened to the crunching sounds, the more annoyed he became. All right, stop eating. The elderly man scolded angrily. The fat man faltered. Master, what's wrong? The elderly man pointed at the fat man with trembling hands. Look at you now, what have you become? Every time I take you out, my image will plummet. Those powerful beings will laugh at me and ask why the heavenly venerate's disciple has turned into a ball. How am I supposed to answer that? You've thrown my old face away. I don't expect you to be extraordinarily handsome, but at the very least, you have to be a human, right? Ishi. Be a human. The fat man's mouth gaped open, as if he had been dealt a heavy blow. That's right, this fat man was Ishi, and the elderly man before him was the heavenly lord of Tao and virtue. The heavenly lord of Tao and virtue couldn't help but shake his head at the sight of his disciple's dumbstruck expression. He didn't dare to retort, but he still stubbornly stuffed pills into his mouth. Forget it, forget it. Let's go, I'll take you to Nuwa. This world is about to change. With a wave of the old man's sleeve, the two of them disappeared like a wisp of smoke.